Certification completed. Proceed to the cloning center. Allocation completed. Please wait at exit C4. Just like when Lu Ling first stepped into this place. Greenleaf and the accompanying personnel were once again amazed by the highly intelligent and advanced automation within the internal structure, with technological marvels beyond imagination in sight. This time, however, Lu Ling took on the role of a guide. The train came to a smooth stop at the cloning center platform. One by one, the group exited the carriage. At the entrance of the platform, two soldiers from the Marine Corps, fully equipped in powered armor, immediately stood at attention and saluted. Salute to the Marshal. Lu Ling slightly nodded in response. Half an hour after taking full control of the internal structure, he discovered that this architectural system, originating from Eve, could directly purchase passengers without the cumbersome process of going to a planet. Thus, he immediately acquired 100 Marines to guard important facilities, initially establishing a security system for the space station. As the core of future plans, the cloning center naturally became one of the first armed locations. Although Aura was present, her influence was intangible, and some rules still needed to be formally established. When the words cloning center came into view, Greenleaf instantly understood Lu Ling's deeper meaning. It seems you were prepared all along, she said softly. Lu Ling had never been here before, yet he confidently followed the guidance of the navigation cursor. The information and skill books he had provided earlier during the Death Spiral in Carthage were merely foundational. The theories could only become groundbreaking works here. Greenleaf, however, remained extremely cautious. The technology you provided is very complex and lacks the critical equipment support for such high-level devices. Even the Empire might not be able to produce them. I know. Lu Ling spoke with absolute confidence, knowing that the internal structure could accommodate the cloning center. This was a space station specifically designed for cloning technology. How could it lack the necessary foundational equipment? That's also why I brought you here. I mentioned from the beginning that I need you. He continued, completely unaware of the rapid heartbeat of Greenleaf. Here, anything is possible. Lu Ling's words were extremely bold, yet against the backdrop of this incredible steel city, they seemed entirely reasonable. The arched hatch opened, and soft light spilled out. He did not enter, but looked again into Greenleaf's eyes, his tone carrying an invitation that could not be refused. So, are you interested in joining me here to become a deity? Deity? Greenleaf chuckled lightly, her gaze meeting his without a hint of retreat. Instead, she slowly shook her head. I'm not interested in being a deity. I prefer to create one. She deliberately elongated her tone, leaning in slightly closer, almost feeling each other's breath. Create a deity? Lu Ling saw the flames igniting in her naturally alluring green eyes. That was a thirst for the limits of science, a challenge against the ultimate truth from a mortal body unwilling to settle for mediocrity. All right. Lu Ling's lips curled up slightly. Since that's the case, then let's create a deity. Chapter 214. Soul, is there a shackle on the path of human science? Almost a year ago, when he first stepped into this starry sky, Lu Ling would have answered without hesitation, yes. But now, his mindset has completely changed. So, is there a limitation on the path of human science? Limitation? When the system bonded with him, generating these powerful starships out of thin air, and constructing this miracle in the Kuiper Belt in an instant, Lu Ling firmly believes that there are no limitations in human science. Because limitations are merely information gaps at the cognitive level. Hasn't every significant leap in the history of human science broken the previous cognitive limitations? From the geocentric theory to the heliocentric theory. From classical mechanics to relativity and quantum mechanics. Every breakthrough originates from acquiring new information, observation, theory, experiment, thereby breaking the old information gap. And any technology that humans cannot comprehend, which is sufficiently advanced, is no different from magic or miracles. However, while science has no infinite limits or boundaries, morality and humanity do. For example, the deification happening right now. Please. Lu Ling stepped aside, gesturing towards the arched door shrouded in soft white light. LVY took a deep breath, her gaze firm, and stepped across the threshold that symbolized the boundary without hesitation. In an instant, her vision became clear. Inside the door was a vast service hall, over 20 meters high, spacious and bright. The floor was made of the iconic, deep gray, high-strength composite material of Letalu, polished to a mirror finish, reflecting the streamlined lighting strips on the ceiling. The air circulation system maintained a constant temperature and humidity, providing clean oxygen. In the center of the hall was a circular control platform, with holographic data streams slowly rotating like a galaxy. LVY disregarded Lu Ling and walked straight to the control platform to begin operating it. Her long fingers swiftly gliding across the virtual interface, bringing up the architectural diagram of the entire cloning center. There were 5 departments in total: Gene Sanctuary, Life Weaving, Realm of Souls, Bridge, Well of Returning to Ruins. This was the first time Lu Ling had seen these department names. How should he put it? They sounded less like departments of a cutting-edge research center and more like chapters from ancient mythological texts or internal terminology of a secretive society obsessed with mysticism. They were filled with an air of mystery. As LVY quickly browsed through the data streams, she seemed to notice the confusion in Lu Ling's eyes. Did he find it mysterious? Did he think it was unscientific? Lu Ling nodded slowly. LVY, continuing her operation at the control center, teased. Aren't you the master here? Don't you understand your own technology? Technology? Cloning technology? Lu Ling knew nothing about it. After all, wasn't this all created by the Jovians? By now, nearly 30,000 summoned refugees had arrived, and not a single Jovian was among them. He thought to himself that LVY's use of such philosophical and theological terms to describe the processes of soul and life was quite appropriate. When science reaches its limits, it confronts philosophy, or even theology. She stepped forward, approaching the console, and brought up a three-dimensional structure diagram of the entire cloning center. The 5 departments appeared as 5 shining nodes, connected by streams of light forming a clear path. Come on, my big boss. The tone of Greenleaf carried an excitement and seriousness, as if she were about to unveil a masterpiece. Let me guide you on our path to creating divinity. Greenleaf led Lu Ling through an airlock, and the scene before them changed dramatically. The temperature dropped suddenly, and a faint scent of coolant filled the air. Countless cylindrical ultra-low temperature storage units stood silently in the dim blue light, resembling the root systems of giant trees, extending to the end of their vision. This was the starting point of everything. Greenleaf's voice echoed in the gene repository. The mainframe could upload and store the most complete gene sequences, and its functions were more comprehensive than I had imagined. If Lu Ling could read Greenleaf's information panel at that moment, she would find that her knowledge of biology and cloning facility operations had already reached an expert level. In addition to the gene storage units, there were also some intricate and complex instruments. This is a gene editor that can repair defects, enhance bone density, speed up neural conduction, and increase energy metabolism. Greenleaf leaned in, her red lips slightly parted. Through it, we can design a base clone with the highest adaptability. We can strengthen any aspect we desire. Theoretically, as long as we have enough resources, we can shape a perfect body without limits. The cloning technology you've entrusted to me is indeed astonishing. Greenleaf rarely gave such affirmation, and it could completely achieve the results you wanted. Lu Ling scratched his head. When he first described the relationship between clones and cloned bodies to Greenleaf before the arrival of Lidalu, she was very surprised and thought it was completely impossible. It wasn't until she studied biology and cloning facility operations that she saw a glimmer of hope. However, she did not know that this so-called effect was already a mature reality in another dimension. Leaving the gene repository, the next stop was the life-weaving machine. The sight before them made even Lu Ling, who had mentally prepared himself, slightly narrow his pupils. They were in a vertical forest made up of countless giant transparent petri dishes, each towering 3 meters high and about 2 meters in diameter, made of crystal clear, ultra-high-strength composite materials, resembling countless inverted droplets, stretching endlessly. A light blue nutrient solution flowed slowly within the dishes, emitting a soft glow, like the flowing stars of life. However, they were empty at that moment. Upon reaching this point, Greenleaf seemed a bit puzzled. From the main control console, I saw that this facility is referred to as the prototype of the Standing Clone Center. It seems there are even more advanced core technologies above this. That's right. Lu Ling nodded. There are Type 1, 2, and even 3. This had been known back at the Lidalu Command Tower. The service facilities of Lidalu did not need to be purchased and installed one by one as in a game. All facility functions were provided in prototype form. The more advanced technical versions were available in the market mall. It's similar to the principle of the Eggman castration ship. Moreover, with the vessel having been so drastically altered, what is the problem with further modifications to the housing? At least the essential components are intact, and having a prototype is already quite good. No wonder. It's clear that this life-weaving machine prototype system can only cultivate E-level clones in large numbers. Even with substantial resources spent on optimizing the genetic repository, D-level is the limit. Lu Ling calculated and realized that this corresponds to alpha, right? Converted, a D-level clone could absorb about 1.5 million skill points, equivalent to skill books. An alpha can only pilot T1 basic ships with 1.5 million skill points. One could at most operate a cruiser alone, right? These things can only be confirmed through practice. They left the life-weaving machine and arrived at the next location, the realm of souls. Here, they could only look down through the observation window, seeing dark round spheres connected by countless fine biological fibers and energy conduits, creating a solemn and mysterious atmosphere. This is the realm of souls. It seemed to be Greenleaf's first time witnessing it, and her voice carried a fervent awe. Below was the consciousness construct cultivation device. After you upload the sequence to the genetic repository, the mother body would enter this space. The life-weaving machine creates a perfect container. The consciousness construct is a complete mapping of all your memories, personality, and neural network topology, forming a consciousness backup or a fragment of the soul. Once the soul fragment is formed, it will merge into the consciousness construct. However, this soul fragment must be absolutely pure and smooth, and your willpower must be incredibly resilient. Greenleaf's tone grew increasingly serious. So if you want to remotely control a body, your genetic level must be above that body. Otherwise, you won't be able to endure the pain of soul tearing? Lu Ling contemplated this, meaning that I am currently at E level and can only enter an F level body? No, Greenleaf replied, seemingly recalling the past. A slight smile forming at the corners of her mouth, exhaling softly. Just like when you first arrived, inferior beings, want to give it a try? Lu Ling rolled her eyes. After leaving the realm of souls, they arrived at the fourth stop, the Du Chao. The scene before them resembled a hall for some religious ceremony, filled with dark spheres, but with additional circular devices, complex biological fibers, and energy conduits intertwining and spiraling. The Du Chao. Greenleaf began to explain again. Perfectly matched bodies will be transferred here, and then the successfully cultivated consciousness constructs will be implanted within. You will awaken in the new body, while the mother body will enter biological dormancy. Greenleaf murmured, then looked at him with deep eyes. Congratulations, having reached this point. As long as the mother body is unharmed, you can continuously return, achieving infinite resurrection. She softly summarized. As if stating an established fact, even gods are nothing more than this. Lu Ling fell into contemplation, suddenly feeling a sense of urgency akin to before surgery, and finally asked slowly, what about the fifth, the Abyss Well? Chapter 215, The Abyss Well. After the Jupiter people transmitted escape pod technology and consciousness transfer technology to the four great empires, a brand new elite clone pilot emerged in the starry sea of New Eden. With their substantial financial resources and extraordinary nerve endurance, they no longer rely on traditional bridge command modes. One person, one module, utilizing advanced neural implants, can control every subsystem of an entire starship with ease. Supported by cloning technology, they can possess countless clones, allowing for consciousness transfer to new clones light years away when their physical bodies perish. For these individuals, death is no longer a threat. Their ample combat experience and fearless fighting spirit make them the most formidable group in the New Eden world. There was once a joke that when the Galeni learned that the navy of a certain empire needed only 15 officers and 28 petty officers to operate a capital-class battleship, they were so frightened that they could not eat or sleep. This was until they received another seemingly trivial piece of information. The thousands of Minmater slaves aboard the ship did not count as humans. Similarly, the clone pilots also had a significant number of normal humans aboard their ships, responsible for various maintenance tasks, allowing the clone pilots to focus solely on the weapon systems, propulsion, and repair systems that concern them. Returning to the main topic, having left the bridge that determines the crossing of consciousness between life and death, Lu Ling and Greenleaf arrived at the final and most profound, secretive area of the entire cloning process. Unlike the previous areas that were either intricate, grand, or mysterious, the air here felt as though it had solidified. The light was deliberately kept very low, with only a few ghostly blue indicator lights providing minimal illumination in the endless darkness, outlining a vast and solemn silhouette. This place is known as the Abyssal Well. The preceding 4 steps ensured the birth of the divine shell and the smooth transfer of the soul. Greenleaf's voice unconsciously dropped to a minimum here, carrying a tone of almost reverent solemnity. The Abyssal Well is where the final and most crucial step must be completed, achieving a perfect symbiosis between this newly born deity and its future artifact, the starship. She took a deep breath and guided Lu Ling to a massive circular observation platform. Below, there were isolated closed units separated by independent force fields, all of which were empty inside. In simple terms, the Abyssal Well serves to integrate the clone body with the starship and acts as a quality control measure. Here, the clone body undergoes transformation, establishing deep neural connections with a highly realistic ship core, modules varying from frigates to dreadnoughts. It connects the clone's consciousness neural network with the ship's navigation, weapons, shields, sensors, and all other subsystems at a fundamental level. This process serves as the ultimate test of the clone body's consciousness stability. Simulated jump shocks, combat overloads, and system failures will impact the clone's nerves with extreme intensity. Any subtle instability factors not detected in the soul mirror scan will be magnified infinitely here. Another important function of the Abyssal Well is to calibrate and test the stability of the consciousness transfer channel back to the original body when the clone body dies. The system will simulate the most extreme death scenarios, ship explosions, being engulfed by powerful electromagnetic pulses, and even falling into gravity wells. The requirement is that the consciousness signal must maintain integrity and stability in transmission back to the original body despite extreme interference. Only through continuous honing, testing, and passing the trials of the Abyss, can one be considered a qualified clone pilot? Returning to the relatively bright service hall, Lu Ling sat opposite to Greenleaf on the sofa. Her assistant began to familiarize herself with the surroundings, as she would later work as the actual creator. The first 4 steps are the simplest. One only needs to have a resilient will and nerves. I am absolutely confident in achieving a successful transfer with clones below level 2. Greenleaf lounged on the sofa, her long legs crossed, speaking with the confidence of someone who masters the technology. A drone delivered 2 cups of invigorating hot drinks. The Death Vortex is currently serving as a transport ship, transporting life supplies and strategic reserves from the collection station to the new base. However, merging with the starships of the Earth Federation is quite difficult and requires a long time of training and testing, with the key being voluntary participation. Greenleaf picked up her hot drink, her tone somewhat incredulous. It's amazing that a ship can accomplish most maneuvers and fire control operations with just one person. She looked at Lu Ling, half jokingly and half seriously, saying, "If you want to hand over the powerful starship to a clone for operation, you can only choose the most loyal ones, like your little female servant." There's no issue with her willingness. After her jest, she became serious. Moreover, as the consciousness deeply integrates with the starship system, especially after repeatedly experiencing death and returning, it will constantly challenge the boundaries of self. Candidates must possess an iron will and have an unshakable answer to the question of who they are. Doubt, hesitation, and even excessive emotion could lead to distortion or loss of consciousness during transmission. Lu Ling pondered. Becoming a clone is easy, but becoming a clone capable of piloting the Eve starship is undoubtedly a painful process. The hall fell into a brief silence. It's hard to find. Lu Ling finally admitted that even he currently just wants to transfer to a clone to gain true immortality, allowing for unrestrained actions. Even if the clone dies, as long as it continues to be cultivated, in the blink of an eye, it can rise again. Clone pilots are different. They not only need absolute will, but also absolute loyalty. Suddenly, Lu Ling thought of someone. Dark Crow? That's a good candidate. As Faith has forged a steel will and absolute loyalty, and passing the Abyss trials should not be difficult. I must say, sometimes Faith is indeed powerful, granting mortals extraordinary strength. However, conversely, Dark Crow lacks knowledge of ships, and whether it's training or enhancing the genetic strength of clones. It requires a lot of resources and time, similar to establishing a new account, akin to the investment of Alpha or Omega. More importantly, Dark Crow has emotional deficits, executing orders without leaving room for negotiation, making him a double-edged sword that is hard to control. After much thought, Lu Ling ultimately made a decision. First, to establish a detailed assessment process to filter out candidates who pass the first 4 stages, prioritizing the principle of voluntary participation for the Abyss trials. No problem. The Greenleaf nodded in agreement, and a flash of sharpness crossed her blue eyes. Theory is ultimately just theory. Now, I need the first resilient experimental subject to put it into practice. A resilient experimental subject? Lu Ling raised her eyes and met the gaze of the Greenleaf. Their eyes crossed in the air, no words needed. A tacit understanding reached once again. They both thought of the same person. The woman imprisoned in the high-security confinement room, Feng Ling. The Greenleaf said softly, "Using her as the first experimental subject is indeed very appropriate. Her resilience, strong survival instinct, and almost obsessive self-awareness are the most solid fortifications deep within her consciousness." Her analysis was precise and objective, entirely from an experimental perspective. Lu Ling nodded slightly. Feng Ling's value lies not only in her resilience, but also in her sacrificial nature. What about loyalty? The Greenleaf raised a crucial question, though her tone held little concern, more like a confirmation of the process. Lu Ling replied calmly, "She doesn't need loyalty. Without the artifact, even if she passes through the void, she will merely remain unscathed. Moreover, her original body is always under our control." He stood up, preparing to leave. "Since you're not confident about the void, let us use her to test its strength." The Greenleaf also stood up, her expression reverting to that of a pure researcher focused on the task at hand. "Understood. I will immediately develop a preliminary optimization plan targeting her genetic characteristics. Although the risks of non-alpha genetic sequences are unknown, as a sample for stress testing, it might better expose the boundaries and flaws of our technological system." She paused and looked at Lu Ling. "So, how do you plan to persuade our special volunteer?" Without pausing in his steps, Lu Ling's voice, calm to the extreme, echoed clearly in the hall. "Persuade? That's merely a notification." Chapter 216. A new home. The terrifying hunters, a force established single-handedly by Lu Ling externally. It was merely a glimpse during the DT-7770 war, a code name, and even the Silverwing Empire did not know the specific name, only that it originated from the Earth Federation. However, internally, under Aura's management, the terrifying hunters had formed an absolute order, with everyone functioning like gears in a massive machine. lubricating and propelling everyone forward. Thus, all who were loyal to and followed Lu Ling held their respective functions and ranks within the organization. It was divided into levels from L0 to L12. L0, the only pinnacle, was called the Marshal or Captain, which referred to Lu Ling, the supreme leader, holding absolute ownership, decision-making power, and final interpretation rights. Orders took the highest priority, surpassing all rules and processes. L1 Strategic Decision-Making Level, responsible for organizational strategy, cross-fleet strategic planning, resource allocation, diplomatic decisions, and other macro affairs, currently comprising only 4 individuals. 1. Commander of the Terrifying Hunters Fleet, Brutal Sai Rue, responsible for the strategic planning of all military operations, fleet organization, and issuing combat orders. 2. Commander of the Black Coal Mine Mining Fleet, Maida Chris Ting, overseeing all resource extraction, revolver-class and charger-class fleets, refining, and industrial logistics supply chains. The Personal Affairs Officer of the 3 Marshals, Zawina, is responsible for schedule management, directive communication, and accompanying protection. Although she never participates in decision-making, she mainly acts as an extension of Lu Ling's will and possesses special speaking rights. The last one is Aura. Which brings up a question. Does artificial intelligence count as a person? Of course it does. Everyone affectionately calls her Sister Aura. She is all-knowing and all-powerful. Whether it's in combat, administration, communication, maintenance, monitoring, or even arranging specific tasks for everyone. Level 2, Fleet Command Department Director, responsible for commanding fleet operations or the core operations of the base. Currently, there is only one member, the newly arrived Greenleaf, who manages the Headquarters Medical Center and Cloning Center. Level 3, Tactical Command Department Deputy Director, Subfleet Commanders or Deputy Directors of Core Departments. Level 4, Captain Department Experts, Captains of the main warships. For example, the 8 female knights who initially followed Lu Ling are currently learning stealth special operations ship skills. More are selected by aura from passengers coming from the Eve world. These captains stand out from numerous refugees and laborers, with solid abilities and unquestionable loyalty. Level 5, Core Officer Department Executives, supervisors of key positions on the main ships, such as first mates and chief engineers, or leaders of departmental teams. Level 6, Senior Officer Senior Engineers, top experts in their fields or direct leaders of combat teams. Level 7, Intermediate Officers Intermediate Engineers, experienced non-commissioned officers or technical backbones, serving as team leaders and the main force in tactical execution. Level 8, Junior Officers Junior Engineers, reliable members who can independently operate complex equipment or complete small assigned tasks. This is the starting point of the Level 8 system. Level 9, Senior Crew Members, skilled crew members with extensive experience in their respective skills. Level 10, Formal Crew Members, official members who can reliably complete all routine tasks. Level 11, Trainee Crew Members, newcomers who have completed basic training but still need to work under guidance. Level 12, Candidates, newly recruited personnel in the initial assessment, screening, and basic training phase, not yet formal members of the organization. They must pass loyalty, psychological quality, and basic skill assessments to be promoted to Level 11. At this time, at the headquarters of the Black Coal Mine, in the G4 Fleet's Special Living Area. G4 is a living area specifically set up for all fleet personnel, ensuring that crew members can get optimal rest during non-combat periods and can engage in combat at the fastest speed upon receiving orders. It includes crew dormitories, officer suites, a cafeteria, a fitness center, and shops, located near the G1 Fleet's combat readiness area. G4L801 is an ecological officer dormitory, providing high-standard living and rest facilities specifically for Level 8 officers. Bloodshark Thomas, humming an off-key battle song, opened the door to his dormitory with the personal terminal he had just been assigned. He never dreamed that this would be his new home. At first, he was shocked. But as he moved along, what he saw and experienced had shocked him to numbness. Ghost Crocodile was right. Only by following the right leader can one have a future. The hatch slid open, and a surge of vibrant artificial breeze rushed in, swiftly dispersing the metallic scent of the new dwelling. For him, nearly 30 square meters of space was nothing short of luxurious. An adjustable angle single bed measuring 18 meters, an integrated workbench, a separate bathroom unit, a wardrobe, and a virtual porthole that occupied an entire wall. Outside was the dark, boundless expanse of the deep ice belt. The Bloodshark switched modes, and the view outside transformed into the Carthaginian glass bay, with rippling azure waves and warm sunlight. Haha, this is amazing. For someone who had once squeezed into a cramped pigeon coop, this place felt like paradise. He walked over to the bathroom unit, which featured an all-in-one washing machine that promised cleanliness in 3 seconds. The Bloodshark tossed in his oil-stained, sweat-soaked jacket, and with a sound reminiscent of a vacuum cleaner. It was all done in an instant. When he pulled it out again, the clothes were as clean as new. Shoo, shoo, shoo. The blood shark unbuckled his belt and whistled, envisioning a girl at the bow of the boat. Just then, the wristband emitted a series of beeps. A soft light screen unfolded, displaying the current salary distribution. Blood Shark Thomas. Affiliation, Terror Hunter Fleet, USS Death Vortex. Logistics Marine Assault Team Leader. Rank, L8, Junior Officer. Base salary, 5-star coins. Mission bonus, 150 star coins, from DT-70 operation. Contribution points, 6,150 LP. Star coin account balance, 3362. Contribution points balance, 42,354 LP. Contribution points needed to reach L7, 451,496 LP. Looking at the 4-digit star coins and 5-digit contribution points, the blood shark grinned. Thinking back to when he had fought for survival in Blackwater Bay, even a big score with Feng Ling hadn't brought in this much. As for the star coins, one day of leave would mean a trip to Carthage to live it up. Contribution points not only represented merit, but could also be exchanged for special resources, like daily necessities such as tobacco and fresh meat. Moreover, they could be traded for tactical resources, including life-saving potions and even advanced nano-battle armor. However, the hottest item remained a pick-me-up soft drink named Cool Fay, which cost 5,000 LP and 45 star coins for just one can. That felt like a real sting. At that moment, a visitor arrived. It was Ghost Crocodile. Old Croc, come in. The blood shark called out grumpily while hurriedly pulling up his pants. Check out my new place. Ghost Crocodile stepped inside, still wearing his usual silent demeanor, followed by Old Lou. Reminiscent of the time when they had fought their way out of Blackwater Bay together, as if it were a lifetime ago. He glanced around the room, his gaze lingering for a moment on the Carthaginian seascape of the virtual porthole, nodding slightly. Not bad. You actually used the wallpaper from Carthage. Haha, of course. The blood shark reclined on the bed leisurely. So, are we going to the store to buy some daily necessities? Ghost Crocodile shook his head and pulled out his wristband, which displayed a bright yellow task marker. This is a mission assigned by OLA. The first batch of battlefield clearance for DT-70 has been completed, and the recovered debris has been moved to the E5 Waste Recycling Workshop hangar. I need to report in. Debris? Blood Shark was puzzled. His wristband remained silent. But in the next moment, a task notification lit up on time, requesting him to join. This made Blood Shark highly suspicious that it was the Ghost Crocodile coming to find him, triggering a chain reaction. Aren't we the Marines? Shouldn't clearing debris be the responsibility of the logistics department? Do you want to ask, officer? Blood Shark quickly interrupted, awkwardly saying, it's fine, no objections. Absolutely no objections. He didn't even know who he was pledging loyalty to. In the G1 fleet readiness area, the Naval Infantry Armored Maintenance Room was already filled with dozens of familiar faces from the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Those who had contributed significantly, like Blood Shark, had already reached L8, while the slower ones had made it to L9. For this group of mercenaries accustomed to living on the edge, the generous rewards kept their morale high for every battle. Blood Shark, with a cigar in his mouth, stepped onto the assembly platform. As the ground beneath him sank slightly, the surrounding floor opened up, and countless mechanical arms extended out. With flickering laser positioning, they lifted and assembled a set of Imperial Standard, Sanctifier, power armor frame, precisely attaching modular armor pieces. The platinum-colored armor was heavy and imposing, with plates at least 5 mm thick and smooth lines. The right arm integrated a foldable 20 mm magnetic rail cannon, while the left arm was equipped with a multifunctional grappling net launcher. This was purely an assault and suppression equipment. Some individuals were also equipped with missiles. These were all spoils of war collected on the battlefield. With a click, as the airtight lock tightened, a slight hum signaled the completion of the armor system self-check. The helmet closed, and the visor display showed a stream of data, outlining the structural diagram and mission briefing. Just 10 seconds later, the 3-ton, 25-meter-tall Sanctifier power armor was fully donned. Checking communications. Blood Shark's helmet filled with smoke as he began the routine checks, as per regulations. The passage is clear. The voice of the Ghost Crocodile came through. The system is online. Self-check complete. Responses came from the team. Let's go. The assembly platform sank into the ground, and everyone moved toward the dedicated station. A larger-than-usual engineering track transport vehicle awaited them, with no seats, only individual stands that attached to the back of the armor. The train accelerated, racing down the deep corridor toward the E5 Waste Recycling Workshop deep within the base. Minutes later, the engineering track transport vehicle slid into the docking platform of Hangar 8 in the E5 Workshop, and the heavy composite armor airlock hissed open. As Blood Shark stepped out of the transport vehicle and entered the isolation door, the environmental readings on his visor refreshed instantly. Temperature, 645 C, decay heat, humidity, 2. Radiation, 176 sieverts. Do not exit the power armor. Contaminants, iodine, 131, cesium, 137, High-risk radioactive isotopes detected above threshold. Warning. Internal circulation life support system has been forcibly activated. External environment poses a high biological hazard risk. The sight before him made him instinctively hold his breath, even forgetting to smoke his cigar. Damn it. The blood shark spat, and the air circulation system inside the mask immediately extracted the smoke and saliva, extinguishing the cigar as well. The dome of Hangar E-58 was high and vast, with countless arrayed cold light sources evenly dispersing like artificial stars, illuminating everything below. The air was slightly ionized due to high-intensity radiation, glowing with a strange, light blue hue that distorted the vision. Beneath their feet was a cold, hard special alloy floor, extending into the distance beyond sight. In this expansive space, organs and remnants of armor stripped from the Empire's silver-winged battleships were neatly arranged. Right in front of them, the bow of a massive Ray Moon-class battleship, towering hundreds of meters, was secured in place. Although the particle cannon array on it was charred, its structure remained largely intact. Countless drones buzzed around, tirelessly scanning, analyzing, entering data into the database, and conducting initial classification and decontamination. Some engineering drones began cutting and dismantling. Soon, the 30-meter-tall particle cannon array, resembling a small hill to them, was taken down. Not far from it lay the remains of an indescribable dreadnought, most of its structure still intact. Is this a hangar? This looks more like a giant's morgue, Blood Shark murmured, stunned by the cold, grand, and deathly beautiful scene. It looked so small when they were fighting. The ghost crocodile was also taken aback, not expecting something so large. In the universe, everything looks small from afar, but up close, everything is terrifying. At that moment, a mission path cursor appeared on everyone's mask screens. Main objective change. One-armed targets detected within the wreckage group E-577 by drones. Authorization to eliminate if there is resistance. Main objective change. 2 collect active escape pods. Risk level. Medium. Everyone. Battle formation. Operate in squads. Blood Shark instantly got into position, signaled, and the 50 individuals divided into 10 small teams, raising their electromagnetic rifles in alertness. Above them, 20 samurai drones floated down slowly, then swept over their heads. Fire support. Advance. The heavy sanctifier armor thudded against the cold floor with each step, moving deeper into the wreckage. Chapter 217. Celestial Night. Minutes later, the team had entered deeper into the wreckage. The E-577 wreckage group was a relatively intact part of a Judgment-class dreadnought, consisting of several core areas, scattered over approximately a kilometer, resembling a twisted steel city. Broken decks were stacked layer upon layer, and thick energy conduits hung down like severed veins, while solidified metal drips resembled dark stalactites hanging down. The environment was extremely harsh, with the readings on the mask consistently remaining at dangerous levels and even rising. Temperature: 712, high-energy fusion core residue detected. Radiation: 308 sieverts, lethal level. The scanning beam of the powered armor swept across layers, revealing a profile of a Judgment-class vessel in the upper left corner, with flashing warning signs glaring. Structural stability extremely low. Periodic stress fracture sounds detected. In front was a narrow fracture entrance, with several drones hovering, unable to enter. Damn, this place is hell. Blood Shark cursed, biting down harder on his cigar. Ghost Croc, cover me, I'm going in first. The thrusters of his powered backpack shot out a bluish flame as he quickly darted over a distance of more than 10 meters, with Ghost Croc and Old Six immediately following the lead. The team spread out in a defensive formation, struggling to navigate through the massive metal wreckage. The deck height here was only 7 meters, with various equipment densely packed, making progress even more difficult. The heavy feet of the Sanctifier-powered armor creaked on the twisted deck, every step sending shivers down the spine, fearing that this several-ton weight might cause a secondary collapse. Without the drones for support, Blood Shark felt uneasy, as he had experienced the prowess of these unmanned machines firsthand. Gunfire began to echo through the channel. The second team engaged the enemy, but the opposing force suffered severe radiation exposure and lost combat effectiveness. Sorry, I just got tense. The fifth team had retrieved the escape pod. The eighth team discovered a survivor. His arms and legs were gone, but there were active signals from his head and heart. Requesting instructions. Sister Aura wants us to carry out humanitarian rescue? Alright, but I won't. Coordinates have been sent. Medics, hurry. Blood Shark muted the channel, his cigar trembling slightly as his gaze sharpened like never before, a sign of his battlefield instincts. Boss, we have a situation. Old Six, responsible for flank reconnaissance, suddenly lowered his voice. His powered armor was equipped with an energy spectrum analysis device, also known as the Sanctifier reconnaissance model, left front, behind that fractured observation platform. There are residual energy signatures, very weak, not like equipment leakage, appeared about 10 seconds ago, but I didn't see anyone. Everyone's heart sank. Defensive formation. Blood Shark immediately signaled with tactical gestures, and the team halted their advance, locking onto various blind spots. The thin air was eerily silent, with only the faint red glow from the residual heat of the distant furnace casting an ominous hue over everything. Fire 2 more scanning drones. Blood Shark ordered in a low voice. Ghost Croc raised his arm, launching 2 thumb-thick scanning drones that unfolded their wings in midair, heading towards the depths of the wreckage. However, in such a high-heat, high-radiation environment, these simple scanning drones couldn't last long. Seconds later, a series of blurry, intermittent thermal signals and energy characteristics popped up on everyone's mass displays. But based on the faint outlines, human figures could be discerned. It's a living person. Blood Shark squinted. Silver-winged Marines? Before he could finish his sentence, whoosh. A subtle yet extreme sound of air being pierced coincided almost simultaneously with a faint blue light. A Marine standing at the forefront of the flank had his sacred helmet's side suddenly burst with a dazzling spark of electricity, and the heavy armor was instantly punctured by a small hole. The force of the impact shook even his powered armor. Enemy attack. High above at the 10 o'clock position. Sniper. The warning from the team member and the sound of gunfire erupted almost simultaneously. Cover the wounded. It's fine. The lining hasn't been penetrated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 more shots rang out, each processed with top-notch sound suppression, the sound coming from unpredictable directions. The bullets precisely hit the joints and servo systems of 2 other team members. Although they didn't penetrate the armor, they successfully limited their mobility. Launch missiles. Take him down. The Blood Shark roared. A heavy-duty sacred soldier immediately knelt on one knee, activating the portable missile launcher on his back, and 2 missiles shot out with a scream. The massive explosion echoed in the narrow space, the shockwave causing everyone's armor to tremble slightly. The first squad engaged. We need support. Someone shouted. Received. The 7th squad will arrive in 30 seconds. The 10th squad will be in position in 50 seconds. Amidst the chaos, the Blood Shark's mask, enhanced with thermal imaging and motion sensors, quickly captured 2 blurry images. Not dead. All units, fire the light-piercing grenades, cover the area. 10 grenades were launched from the electromagnetic rifle's underbarrel launcher, exploding in midair, creating a deafening high-frequency noise, blinding light, and electromagnetic pulses that swept across the entire area. The Blood Shark remained extremely calm, his eyes fixed on the captured images. Sure enough, under the influence of the electromagnetic pulse, the 2 silhouettes gradually became clear. It's optical camouflage. 12 o'clock position, elevation 44, fire. He fired first, the electromagnetic rifle spewing out a torrent of azure bullets. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The dense blue electric rain directly covered the area in front, but the 2 silhouettes vanished from the sensors in an instant. Damn it, everyone be careful. It's advanced camouflage. Experts from the Silver Wings. The Blood Shark felt an unprecedented gravity. Everyone retreated for defense, taking turns to fire light-piercing grenades. Be careful not to get your throat slit. To the right at 1 o'clock. The warning from the team member sounded again, urgent. Almost the moment he finished speaking. Behind a broken alloy beam at 1 o'clock, the air twisted violently again, and 2 blurry figures were forced to reveal themselves for a brief moment under the interference of strong light and electromagnetic pulses. Now's our chance. The Blood Shark's pupils constricted sharply. With no time to examine closely, combat instinct made his electromagnetic rifle roar, spitting out a torrent of azure bullets. The ghost crocodile beside him and 2 other team members also opened fire simultaneously, weaving a net of fire from 4 rifles that instantly covered the area. Ding ding dang dang. Puffed. Bullets struck the metal structure, sparking densely, but a few clearly hit the targets. 1 figure staggered violently, the already blurry silhouette flickering more intensely, nearly dissipating, yet stubbornly maintaining its outline. Another figure nimbly rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding most of the fire, but their movements showed a hint of unnatural stiffness. Hit. However, the 2 figures did not retreat as expected. They seemed to have recognized the identity of the Blood Shark commander. Whoosh. A crimson high-energy beam, far more powerful than the previous sniper rifle, shot in from a tricky angle, directly targeting the Blood Shark. There's more. The ghost crocodile shouted. The Blood Shark felt his hair stand on end as the massive sanctified armor's engine erupted in brilliance, propelling him sideways with all his might. In an instant, the spot where he had been standing was melted through, with molten metal dripping down to the lower deck. What the hell? It's a battleship cannon. Retreat. Fall back quickly. Not just 2 people. There are experts too. The ghost crocodile, still shaken, warned everyone to be cautious. Their genetic levels are very high, and they can't keep up with the firing speed. Sister Aura, this is serious. Quickly call for Yagu to take care of these heretics. The Blood Shark staggered to dodge a deadly attack, the chill of death piercing through, desperately screaming out. In contrast to their panic, A slender figure flickered in and out of visibility hundreds of meters away in the shattered shadows. The optical camouflage was clearly in an unstable state, and the powerful battleship cannon in hand was charging in intervals. Silver Wing Resistance, Tianshu Knights, Rainshala. Despite her damaged armor, skin scorched by high temperatures, and being in a lethal radiation environment, her combat prowess made the Blood Shark instantly realize that this was not a hard nut to crack for just their small team. Meanwhile, her brother Rainalge and Caslin had approached the Imperial team. With a swift motion, a precise shot forced back a member of the Blood Shark team who attempted to flank them, his electromagnetic rifle knocked to the ground. It seemed they had temporarily gained the upper hand. Chapter 218, Al-Shala 1 hour earlier. The cold silence was shattered by a piercing alarm and the smell of burning. As Shala's consciousness struggled to awaken from chaos, the first sense to return was touch. The seatbelt held her tightly in the cold metal seat. Next was hearing. The hoarse gasps from the escape pod's internal circulation system breaking down. She suddenly opened her eyes. Inside the escape pod, emergency lights cast a dim red glow, illuminating the cracked interior walls. On the holographic control panel, vital sign readings fluctuated violently, with radiation and toxin indicators soaring into the red. But the most glaring was the external environment readings. Temperature, 545 C. Humidity, 6. Radiation, 233 sievert. Contaminants, iodine, 131, cesium, 137. Has the reactor leaked? Her heart sank. The last fragments of memory before entering hibernation surged back. The Silver Wing invincible ship, the soul of determination, crumbled under the overwhelming firepower of the Imperial Navy. And her brother Alge forced her into the escape pod, with the hope that the Silver Wing would dispatch elite assault boats for recovery first. But now, through the cracked glass, all she could see was the familiar escape route of the soul of determination, though now even the warning lights were gone, leaving only darkness. She looked at the time again. It had been several days since she entered the escape pod. It seemed that the Silver Wing had been defeated. After all, even if the second Divine Thunder punishment was destroyed, the Empire still had a third and fourth, and even that terrifying fate judgment. When the shimmering purple crystal reserves of the Silver Wing were exhausted, it would be the time of their collapse. But in any case, it now seemed that she had survived. Brother. She took out a Tianshu nanobelt and activated it. The cool blue nanoparticles instantly covered her body, emitting a cold, sharp gleam like armor. She reached out to open the escape pod, but as soon as the hatch opened, it got stuck. Then, gathering strength, bang. The hatch was violently smashed off, crashing against the external metal structure with a loud noise. Sarah nimbly darted out, her nano armor-wrapped feet lightly landing, making a faint metallic scraping sound. The high-temperature, dry air enveloped her immediately, even with the protection of the level 6 nanobelt. She could still feel the scorching heat wave. The radiation readings flickered blindingly on the visor display. She quickly crouched down, leaning against the wreckage of her escape pod, her sharp gaze scanning the surroundings like a scanner. Before her was the familiar interior passage of the Determination Soul, but now it was a scene of devastation. Most of the originally bright lighting system had failed, with only a few emergency lights flickering, casting unsteady shadows. Sarah's expression sharpened. The shadow kill mode of her nano armor, optical camouflage, was instantly activated, making her figure blur under the dim light, like a ghost blending into the background. She quickly made her way to the area of the escape pod ejection passage that she remembered. This area was more severely damaged than the main passage, with large sections of the walls collapsed and many escape pod launch tubes blocked by twisted metal. Her heart sank slightly, since she had entered the escape pod first. She had no idea of Ald's location. Beside a half-open launch shaft, she saw the first escape pod, its twisted metal having crushed it flat. Sarah couldn't determine if anyone was inside. She paused in silence for a second, gently touching her forehead with her fingertips in a brief gesture of mourning, then continued her search without hesitation. As long as she hadn't found Alge, she would never accept her brother's death. She delved deeper along the ejection passage, searching for any signs of life. Finally, in a relatively intact area deep within the passage, she saw the second escape pod, which was in better condition, though a metal spike had pierced the glass. She reached out to wipe away the dust, and the internal red light flashed. Indeed, she found a figure inside. But it wasn't her brother. It was Caslin. The oxygen system had been crushed, and fortunately, this metal spike had blocked the oxygen. Otherwise, he might have suffocated long ago. Sarah ripped off the external controller, and the fingertips of her nano armor extended small interfaces, attempting to connect to the escape pod's backup system. A stream of data quickly flashed across the visor display. Occupant vital signs, weak. Internal environment, low pressure. System damage, main airtight failure. Emergency life support system has failed 55,446. Sarah initiated forced awakening and emergency aid. Almost instantly after the command was issued, A series of rapid and weak beeping sounds echoed in the escape pod, followed by the hoarse noise of the life support system overloading. The slender figure inside the pod twitched violently, producing a gasping sound as if being choked. Filled with extreme pain, but due to the low cabin pressure, it sounded more like a windbag desperately convulsing. It was hypoxia. The forced awakening stimulated his survival instinct. But his weak body and the collapsing environment could not provide enough oxygen. Sarah watched the rising severity index, then her expression sharpened, showing no hesitation. She gripped the edge of the observation window, which had been pierced by metal, with both hands, and the power granted by her nano-armor erupted instantly. Crack! The already cracked reinforced glass was forcibly torn open into a larger gap. High temperature, dryness, and air filled with radiation and pollutants surged into the cabin. She reached out to activate Caslan's life support belt. As the nano-armor covered his head, the sensation of near-death suffocation made him convulse violently. But this time, with the pure oxygen from the armor flooding in, it felt as if a drowning person had finally surfaced, and he began to breathe deeply and greedily. Even though each breath was accompanied by sharp pain in his chest and intense coughing, Caslan's consciousness was forcibly pulled back from the edge of a dark abyss. Before him was first a blood-red haze, then flickering golden stars, and finally, he barely focused on the faceplate outside the shattered observation window. Deputy Commander Rescue? His voice was hoarse. Caslan, stay awake. Deep breaths. Sarah's voice came through the mask. Caslan struggled to open his eyes, trying to see his surroundings. Fragments of memories crashed into his brain. The blinding flash of the ship's explosion, uncontrollable spinning, the impact of being shoved into the escape pod, and then the long, suffocating darkness. He thought he was doomed. Others. He struggled to utter a few words, each one feeling like his lungs were being torn apart. Steady. Sarah interrupted him, directly lifting the entire hatch and dragging Caslan out. Can you move? Caslan gritted his teeth, the C gene fully activated. Dozens of gene sequences awakened in succession. Supported by strong will, he gradually regained control of his near-collapsing body. Not dead. He gasped for breath, his eyes slowly clearing. Then he looked around the familiar wreckage of the warship. A flash of sorrow and anger crossed his eyes, ultimately transforming into cold determination. The Silver Wings lost, didn't they? He looked at Sarah, his voice still hoarse, but much more coherent. Sarah nodded silently. I remember the commander found an empty escape pod in the adjacent F zone. We can check there. Thank you. Sarah immediately darted away, re-entering stealth mode. After a few minutes, Caslan also activated his stealth and set off to look for other survivors. Sarah's figure flowed into the shadows, swiftly maneuvering in the direction of the F zone indicated by Caslan. The level of destruction in Zone F is more severe than in other areas, with shocking signs of explosions and structural collapses. Many escape pod launch shafts have been completely twisted and blocked, leaving little hope. Just as she had been searching for over 10 minutes, nearly in despair, she caught a sound of metal twisting. It was not an explosion, but rather like some enormous force was forcibly damaging the structure. She immediately moved toward the sound and eventually stopped in front of a compartment wall that had been torn apart by a massive explosion. Before her was a huge alloy steel plate, an astonishing 30 centimeters thick, which was originally part of the armor of the ship. Under the intense shock of the explosion, it had twisted and deformed, resembling a gaping maw that had blocked the escape pod's launch tube. Two figures were desperately trying to break through. One was wearing a white nano battle suit, the medical officer Eve of the Knights of the Celestial Axis. Her face was pale, her injured left arm hung limply, but her right hand held a small energy cutter, burning through a relatively weak point at the edge of the steel plate. Below her, a tremendous force was coming in waves, as a 10-centimeter thick alloy inner armor slowly bent, and Sarah could even see a hand covered in nano armor pushing against it. Eve noticed her as well. Hurry, your brother is trapped. Brother. Sarah deactivated her stealth mode and rushed over. Alge raised his head at the sound, speaking rapidly under his helmet. Sarah, quick, bend it with me. Sarah reached to grab the gap in the steel plate. 1, 2, 3. Heave. In an instant, the muscle fibers enhanced by B-level genes in both of their bodies expanded and contracted, unleashing a terrifying force beyond what ordinary humans could imagine. The energy density of their nano-battle suits surged to its peak, with blue nanoparticles swirling rapidly, perfectly combining biological strength with mechanical power, transmitting it to their arms. The force they generated in an instant likely exceeded 20 tons. But even with such immense power, they only managed to move it by less than a millimeter, which was still the result of Eve cutting at the connection point. Again, 1, 2, 3. The heavy steel plate let out a creaking roar as the stubborn structure bent slightly again under the combined force of nearly 20 tons. Sarah gritted her teeth, the veins on her forehead visibly straining beneath her visor. She could clearly feel the overload warnings from the nano-battle suit and the burning sensation of her muscle fibers tearing. Yet her will was as strong as steel. and her strength showed no signs of waning. Alge was the same, each breath accompanied by the ultimate output of power. At that moment, Castellan arrived with 3 other knights, and without a word, they joined in to help. Everyone, 1, 2, 3, heave, 1, 2, 3, lift it, accompanied by a deafening sound of metal tearing. The massive steel plate was finally bent at the edges, creating an opening large enough for one person to pass through. Debris and dust fell in a shower. Alge crawled out, and then pulled out a portable ship-breaking gun with a diameter of over 30 centimeters and weighing 1 ton. Even with B-level enhancement, he was now exhausted. Everyone was breathing heavily. Well done, everyone. Alger gasped for breath, his gaze sweeping over his gathered companions. The reunion of 7 knights of the Celestial Pivot in this dire situation was a stroke of luck amidst misfortune. They immediately checked their injuries and replenished their energy. Eve, scan the surrounding environment. Yes, Captain. Eve promptly released a drone from her backpack, while the others briefly lifted their faceplates to consume high-energy concentrated nutrients and check the status of their weapons and armor. The radiation index, exceeding 250 sieverts, would be fatal for ordinary people, but for them, it was merely a bit uncomfortable. However, they could not linger long. Moments later, Eve's voice came through, tinged with fatigue. The miniature reconnaissance drone she controlled transmitted its last image before its energy was depleted in the high-temperature radiation, causing it to crash deep within the corridor. We found an exit that hasn't collapsed. Alger immediately looked up, his eyes sharp. Location? Environment? Northeast, about 300 meters, marked as the B7 maintenance corridor airlock. The external environment skin still shows high temperature and radiation, but the structure is relatively stable. The corridor seems to lead to a larger space, Eve quickly replied, sharing the coordinates on everyone's visor displays. A larger space? Alger frowned slightly. The original map was no longer reliable. It could be a hangar or a reactor chamber, or it could be a trap. Regardless, it was the only way out for them at the moment. Everyone, check your gear, stay on high alert, and move towards the B7 corridor. The 7 knights of the Celestial Pivot quickly organized themselves. Those selected as knights were at least of sea-level genes, and their will to survive and exceptional resilience allowed them to maintain impressive combat strength. The corridor was silent, save for the faint sound of their boots crunching on metal debris and the low hum of the nano-armor's servo systems. As they neared the B7 airlock, the signs of damage around them seemed to lessen, and they could even see some emergency indicator lights still flickering, which raised a glimmer of hope in their hearts. Finally, the gap created by energy evaporation came into view. Stay alert. They approached cautiously. The sight before them left everyone stunned. This was indeed a vast space, so large that their helmet sensors couldn't scan its boundaries at first. The dome loomed high, shrouded in darkness. The ground was not the expected corridors or chambers of a warship, but rather a series of orderly categorized wreckage. Further away, piles of ship debris and machinery were relatively intact, with some still faintly displaying the silver wings and the emblem of the Empire. This is not the interior of the Spirit of Determination, Sarah whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Is this an Empire recycling facility? Alger's expression turned serious. It's possible the Empire has concentrated all the wreckage at the planetary fortress. Look, that's a Raymond-class Eclipse jump engine. He pointed to a specific spot. A complete engine with a diameter of 50 meters was being scanned by numerous drones. Alger's words cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. The Eclipse jump engine of the Raymond-class battleship was one of the strategic core pieces of the Moonshadow cluster. In the distance, more wreckage was classified and stacked, with some relatively intact hull sections secured by massive force field supports, resembling specimens on an autopsy table. Countless small engineering drones flitted about like worker bees, busy with scanning, cutting, and preliminary repair tasks. Everything was orderly, yet there was a chilling, inhuman sense of efficiency. There was no smoke, no urgent alarms, only a disturbing, deathly silence in the working atmosphere. The key was that there was no one here. Something felt off. Sarah keenly sensed the anomaly as her gaze swept over the busy drones. Their movement patterns were too uniform, as if directed by a central consciousness simultaneously. Forget it. Activate shadow kill mode for everyone. We need to find the shuttle and evacuate. Yes. The others responded in unison, the optical camouflage of their nano-armor activating instantly. Just as they were about to act, 2 samurai drones appeared, their wasteland-style appearance momentarily stunning them. But there was no time to think, because they were too fast. So fast that there was no time to react. Tat 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 tat. Enemy attack. Ard shouted. The first to be targeted was the Celestial Knight responsible for flank reconnaissance. He attempted to leap to a cover point while cloaked, but 3 cannon shots accurately struck his leg and arm joints, as if they had eyes. The nano-armor was instantly torn apart and melted in a blinding spark, and the man screamed as he fell heavily to the ground, losing the ability to move. Richter, medical officer Eve gasped, wanting to rush over, but a searing stream grazed her helmet, forcing her to take cover. "Cover me," Arj shouted as he put down his wrecking gun. Although he and Sarah had B-class genes and unparalleled reflexes, Sarah was still grazed on the waist, with her nano-armor melting away in an instant. In the next moment, a searing beam shot out, yet the drone did not dodge. The assault from the wrecking gun slowly dissipated, creating slight ripples on its shield. Is that a shield? In an instant, another person was hit and fell from several meters high. The attacks from these samurai drones were precise, perfectly coordinated, and ferociously powerful, seemingly able to predict the actions of the Silver Wing Knights. Every dodge was within their calculations, and only by hiding in the blind spots of the wreckage could one avoid being focused on. So intelligent, or rather, terrifying. It was a complete, overwhelming assault. Arj, who prided himself on having fought countless battles, had never encountered such viciously intelligent drones. "Retreat. Back to the passage," he yelled, his voice nearly drowned out by the intense explosions and the shriek of energy. In this open area, facing these drones meant certain death, but it was too late. In that brief moment, 7 Celestial Knights fell, 4 of them down, and Eve was also shot through the calf, struggling on the ground. "Captain, you all hurry and leave." Arj's eyes turned crimson, knowing that further hesitation would lead to the annihilation of the entire army. "Retreat." Tears welled in Sarah and Castlin's eyes as they reluctantly withdrew. Inside the passage, there was a dead silence, only the heavy, painful breaths of the three and the crackling of electrical arcs from the damaged armor, which was attempting to repair itself, but the stored energy core was running low. It was a disastrous defeat, without a doubt. Alger leaned against the scorching metal wall, filled with an unprecedented sense of gravity and helplessness. 10 minutes later, a 10-member Imperial squad appeared. Sarah suddenly regained her senses. The Imperial squad was being relentlessly pushed back by the fierce assault of her brother Alger and Caslin, their formation in disarray. She felt no sense of advantage because she knew everyone would perish here. The Empire's powered armor soldiers were inexhaustible, fighting until they fell from exhaustion. Just then, a muffled but exceptionally clear impact sound pierced through the chaos of the battlefield, like a heavy hammer striking everyone's eardrums. Another thud followed. The rhythm was steady, carrying an undeniable weight, as if it emanated from deep underground, like the heartbeat of some colossal creature. The source of the sound was from the depths of a dark passage behind the Imperial squad. Both sides in the conflict involuntarily slowed their movements for a moment. Reinforcements from the Empire? The footsteps grew closer. Bloodshark and the others seemed to see a savior, almost moved to tears, their expressions replaced by a near-reverent awe. Ignoring their injuries, they struggled to retreat to the sides, clearing an invisible path down the main road like a receding tide. "Lord Dark Crow, these heretics are too arrogant. You must take charge for us." Alger and Caslin instantly concealed all their presence, their nano-armor's optical camouflage reaching its peak, blending into the shadows of the wreckage, completely disappearing. They exchanged a serious glance, sensing an unprecedented alertness from each other. The air on the battlefield suddenly thickened. Even the pervasive high-temperature radiation seemed to retreat. Each step resonated like a heartbeat to everyone present. Finally, from the depths of the dark passage shrouded in the shadows of explosions and debris behind Bloodshark's team, 2 deep, dark golden lights pierced through the darkness, as if 2 eyes had opened from the abyss. Following that, a tall figure slowly stepped out from the shadows, fully revealing its outline. He wore a splendid dark golden-powered armor, its lines embodying a sense of power, like a meticulously crafted knight of slaughter. The shoulder armor was etched with intricate and ancient emblems of the Empire, flowing with a subdued noble sheen under the sporadic red light reflecting off the ruins, resembling a living metal. His faceplate was made of polished obsidian crystal, smooth as a mirror, completely obscuring his features while coldly reflecting the grim scene of the wreckage. He casually rested a uniquely shaped, elongated phase pulse rifle against the ground with his right hand, while on the other side of his waist hung a ceremonial dagger adorned with imperial religious symbols, its scabbard engraved with ancient patterns, adding an air of mystery and lethalness. Simply standing there, the space of the passage felt cramped, an invisible sense of oppression sweeping over like tangible waves. The obsidian crystal faceplate of Dark Crow slightly shifted, reflecting changing images. Finally, those 2 abyss-like crimson lights seemed to penetrate the hidden field, firmly locking onto the positions of Algi, Caslin, and even Sarah. Heresy. Chapter 219, Loyalty in Words. The cold voice of the heretic echoed in the air, and Algi had already moved. The B-grade gene-enhanced neural response made his movements quick as a fleeting shadow. At the same moment, Caslin silently charged from the flank. Sarah remained still, her ship-breaking gun still charging, but a deeper instinct of battle filled her with fear, as if facing a natural enemy. Algi's fist formed with one hand, and the explosive speed and power tore through the air, targeting the armor seam at the side of the heretic's neck, a weak point for any powered armor. This was also the accumulation of his countless combat experiences. Castellan executed a low sweeping kick aimed at the heretic's knee joint, intending to disrupt its balance. The coordination of the Celestial Knights was seamless, effectively blocking the opponent's main evasion routes. The dark golden armor stood still, resembling a predator waiting for its prey to approach. Faced with the two men's fierce combined attack, the heretic did not evade or block. It merely made a slight adjustment of its center of gravity, and its left hand, covered in dark golden armor, reached out like a ghost, accurately meeting Algi's determined punch. Bang! The fist and palm collided, producing a dull metallic sound. Algi's expression changed dramatically. An incredible shock surged in his heart. He felt as if his fist had struck an ancient, unchanging mountain. The tremendous recoil instantly numbing his entire arm. Then, with incredible speed and angle, the heretic's right hand struck first, precisely grasping Castellan's ankle as he swept in. The impact from Castellan, powerful enough to shake a small vehicle, was effortlessly neutralized and restrained. In the first round, their offensive was completely thwarted. Like waves crashing against a dam, the heretic's power was unstoppable. It yanked and twisted with its left hand, causing Algi to groan and his body to be pulled off balance, leaving him wide open. At the same time, the heretic pressed down on Castellan's right wrist, the immense force forcing Castellan to one knee, unable to break free despite his struggles. In the second round, the roles were reversed, and both men found themselves in a passive position. The heretic's movements were devoid of any excess, efficient like a killing machine. Taking advantage of Algi's momentary imbalance, it sidestepped close, using its free left hand to pierce into the exposed nano-damaged area under Algi's armpit. Algi unleashed his potential to the extreme, letting out a loud shout as he rapidly retreated, narrowly avoiding the hand that could crush him, but his combat stance was completely disrupted. Blood surged from his mouth in a backlash. The heretic did not pursue. With a slight exertion of its right hand, Castellan was completely seized by the throat and lifted off the ground. Ugh! Castellan's pained groan was muffled by the armor's visor, the powerful grip almost suffocating him, rendering all his struggles futile under the absolute suppression. Algi watched helplessly as his comrade was instantly subdued, struggling on the brink of death. A glimmer of confusion passing through his eyes for the first time. From the sudden uprising to absolute suppression, in just 2 breaths, a master like Castellan had no power to resist. Even he felt a profound sense of despair. What kind of monster is this? It is definitely not from the Empire. It might not even be human. The limits of humanity cannot possibly break through S. The cold surface of the Dark Raven's armor turned towards Alge. Then, as if discarding waste, Castellan's 200-kilogram body fell heavily to the ground with a muffled thud, clearly unconscious. In the shadows behind, the spectators, including Bloodshark, were left speechless. Did the Raven actually spare a life today? Does that mean none of us guessed right? Someone voiced their confusion. They had just bet on the Dark Raven finishing the fight in a few seconds. How do we settle this? The usual way. We put it into the team's common treasury, which I'll manage, and we can relax together during our break, Bloodshark declared, though he couldn't hide the awe in his eyes. At that moment, a scorching red beam twisted the air and tore through the darkness, aiming directly at the Dark Raven's helmet. Not good. It's a ship-breaking gun. Buzz. The surface of the Dark Raven's armor suddenly manifested a shield without warning, and the searing beam that could melt through starship armor struck it, dissipating into nothingness. What? Bloodshark and the others were shocked. Alge and Sarah found it hard to believe, their hearts trembling. Any practical shield generator is not to be underestimated in size and energy consumption. To casually deflect a direct hit from a ship-breaking gun requires energy density and control precision beyond imagination. However, the Dark Raven's heavy and noble power armor didn't seem like it was equipped with a shield module. Could it be that backpack on its back? The dark golden figure looked at Alge, completely ignoring the ambushing Sarah, tilting its head slightly, as if silently provoking. Monster! Alge roared in anger, suppressing his emotions, and charged once more. This was his final attack, fueled by his entire genetic sequence. But the Dark Raven was faster, merely shifting slightly to perfectly evade Alge's full-force strike. At the same time, its right hand accurately grasped Alge's wrist and twisted it back, while its left foot silently tripped Alge's supporting leg. Alge lost control of his lower body in an instant and fell forward. The Dark Raven's left hand, as if it had been waiting, precisely seized his throat along his trajectory, using the momentum to slam him harshly to the ground. Cough! Alge's head struck the deck heavily, darkness engulfing his vision, and the components at the neck of his nano-armor emitted a twisted groan under the terrifying grip, its structure beginning to collapse. The suffocating feeling of death surging like a tide. Overwhelming. From start to finish, it was clean and decisive to the point of despair. All of this happened in an instant. Not even a second passed, and Bloodshark and the others couldn't see how the Dark Raven made its move. That person was just seized by the throat. My goodness, what does the captain always say? Society is ruthless. My brother doesn't talk much. No wait. Isn't it that the martial arts of the world are invincible, and only speed cannot be broken? Ha ha ha, bullying us logistics folks is nothing special. They just haven encountered our regular troops. Why don't you go to the first corps? When asked about loyalty, you don't go. In the distance, Sarah stood frozen in place. The energy of the ship-breaking gun had peaked, the intense light flickering at the muzzle, but her fingers were frozen, unable to pull the trigger. The lives of her brother and comrades hung by a thread, like a candle flickering in the wind, beneath that dark, golden metal hand. The gaze of the dark raven fell upon Sarah from afar. That gaze was cold, not threatening, just a calm stare. The pride of their night order. The strength and glory they believed in all their lives, crumbled under absolute power. At that moment, Bloodshark received new orders. Quickly emerging from cover and adjusting the loudspeaker to maximum. The marshal commands, "Do not kill the surrendering." His voice echoed through the ruins. Behind him, dozens of reinforcements arrived. Their guns aimed, sealing off all possible escape routes. Sarah wanted to pull the trigger. She could feel the weapon's core trembling. If fired with full force, it would be enough to melt through the armor of a small ship. But she didn't dare. It would have no effect on that monster. She couldn't either. Her gaze was locked onto below, where her brother, Alge, was still gripped by that dark golden armored hand around his throat. In the Allied signal, alarms blared in red for Alge and Caslin due to oxygen deprivation. Alge used his last ounce of strength to turn his head with great difficulty towards Sarah's direction. Though he couldn't speak, the resolute meaning was crystal clear. Go. Time seemed to stretch. Countless images flashed through Sarah's mind. Her brother's sternness and protection since childhood. Caslin's silent yet reliable figure. The oath of the Night Order. The ideals of the Silver Wings. All of it. I'll count to 3. Bloodshark's voice rang out again, impatiently. Or else. Kill without mercy. His comrades stepped forward, the hum of charging weapons blending into one sound. Sarah closed her eyes. A hot tear absorbed by the nanotech armor's circulation system. When she opened her eyes again, the struggle in her gaze was replaced by a deadly calm. She could not stand by and watch her brother Alge die here. He was her only family, the pride of the Night Order. Honor and kinship weighed lighter than a feather. Clang. The heavy ship-breaking gun fell to the cold metal ground with a dull thud. This sound was particularly startling in the silent ruins, announcing the end of resistance. She raised her hands, the optical camouflage of the nanotech armor automatically disengaging, her figure fully exposed to the enemy's sights. Take her away. Bloodshark waved his hand. E-58 exit. At this moment, the area was crowded with people. Medics and transport personnel were carrying injured captives and escape pods to the medical center with the assistance of drones. Bloodshark and Ghost Croc stood like two gatekeepers, maintaining order at the entrance, while the Dark Raven silently overlooked everything from the platform above. One by one, the Silver Wings and Imperial Power Armor were roughly disarmed. These high-genetic captives injected with nerve suppressants and disintegration agents, bound and dragged by drones for centralized management. Trains arrive and depart one after another, sending them to the prison of the G7. The Dark Crow quietly left at an unknown time, just as it had appeared, leaving no trace. The cleanup of the debris was unaffected, with astonishing efficiency. Chapter 220, Vance's new beginning at the headquarters of the coal mine, D4 Industrial Skills Training Zone, Basic Engineering College. The vast circular space was solemn like a temple, with a high dome flowing with holographic data like a river of stars, cold and magnificent. In the center stood a pillar of data, a knowledge hub connecting heaven and earth. The skill book uploaded by Lu Ling transformed into an invisible torrent of knowledge, accessible to all members with permission. In this circular space, there were no seats, only small learning cubicles that constantly moved around the knowledge pillar, providing students with absolute quiet and independent space, avoiding any disturbances. The auxiliary AI in each learning cubicle could answer questions, resembling teachers from the ancient Origins era. Vance, dressed in a standard gray uniform, had just reported to the small dry dock at the D2 Manufacturing Center and wasted no time during his free period, immediately coming here. He gazed up at the Temple of Knowledge, his eyes reflecting a mix of reverence and a hint of barely perceptible anxiety. Here lay everything he had ever dreamed of. A learning cubicle aligned with a soft docking entrance, and Vance swiped his access card to open the hatch, which suddenly illuminated with cold white light. Identity recognition, Carl Vance. Affiliation, Coal Mine Headquarters D2 Manufacturing Center S50 Small Dry Dock Ordinary Technician. Rank, L10, Regular Member. Base Salary, 2-star coins. Task Bonus, 12-star coins, from DT-70 Combat Mission. Contribution Points, 150 LP, Reporting Task. Star Coin Account Balance, 33. Contribution Points Balance, 5,354 LP. Contribution points needed to reach L9, 4646 LP in the contribution system. Designed by Aura, L10 and L12 did not require significant contributions. As long as one improved oneself, followed the rules, and completed work, contribution points could be earned daily. For instance, today Vance received 150 contribution points for reporting on time at the D2 Manufacturing Center and familiarizing himself with future work. Furthermore, the fleet operations had no opponents or areas needing repair and maintenance, and those who had once prioritized literature over warfare had completely transformed into civilian roles. Here, the title of mechanic was unified to engineer. On the Night Orchid, Vance was respected, managing dozens of people. But here, he was just one among many. He clearly remembered what Lu Ling had told him. Vance, you are smart and ambitious. Although your old system may not be of much use now, I am giving you this opportunity, a chance to stand on the shoulders of giants. With that, Lu Ling patted his shoulder, saying, work hard. I believe you will find your place in the future Star Sea. As this memory surfaced, Vance came back to his senses, instinctively reaching to touch his shoulder. The cabin door closed, isolating him from the external noise. Welcome to the Knowledge Pillar System, Carl Vance. Current level L10. Daily authorized usage time of the knowledge base, 35 hours, based on your background information. The system will provide you with 2 adaptive assessment papers to customize your subsequent learning path. The exam will not be recorded in your profile or usage time. It is solely for assessing your learning path. Please relax while answering adaptive assessment. Vance felt a slight stir in his heart, yet his demeanor became increasingly cautious. In this sacred temple of knowledge, he dared not be overconfident. Generating the first paper. Paper title, Engineering Special Paper of the Parthian Empire Starship. Number of questions, 100 time, 160 standard points full score, 100 at the moment he saw the title. Vance was stunned. Immediately, a long-lost confidence surged from the depths of his heart, quickly dispelling the previous unease and humility. This was the foundation of nearly a century of study, ingrained in his very being, as natural as breathing. A smile that was hard to suppress appeared on his lips. It seemed that this profound and enigmatic knowledge system also acknowledged the value of his past. This first exam felt like a welcome ceremony prepared just for him, allowing him to find his footing on the battlefield he was most familiar with. Start. The data stream began to flash, and the questions appeared. First question. Calculate the minimum heat flux density and neutron irradiation resistance required for the first wall material of the Coron 4 type reactor to maintain a steady output power of 1,000 terawatt-hours under helium. 3 fusion reactions. And list 3 suitable alloys along with their advantages and disadvantages. Vance merely raised an eyebrow, instantly recognizing the key points of the question. He converted the energy of 1,000 terawatt-hours into stable power. For example, 1,000 terawatt-hours in 1 hour equals 1,000 terawatts, or 10-15 watts, and calculated the heat flux per unit area that the first wall would endure, watts per square meter. This was a core issue of nuclear fusion reactors. In addition, he needed to master the pros and cons of candidate materials for the fusion reactor, such as vanadium alloys, silicon carbide composites, oxide dispersion strengthened steel, and nanolayered composites. He took only 10 seconds to finalize his answer. Second question. Briefly describe the ignition sequence of the antimatter injection fusion engine. When the mixing ratio of antimatter flow to deuterium-tritium plasma is 1:105, calculate the specific impulse under ideal conditions and analyze the potential annihilation runaway chain reaction and suppression schemes that may occur when the injection rate deviation exceeds 5. This question examined the extremely complex engineering control logic of the ignition sequence, such as how to safely inject, mix, constrain antimatter, and trigger fusion detonation. The 1:105 mixing ratio tested Vance's precise calculation ability, as specific impulse calculations involve the energy released from antimatter annihilation and the speed of the working fluid injection, requiring a solid foundation in rocket engineering. As for the final 5 concerning runaway annihilation, Vance pondered slightly. This assessed his theoretical failure mode analysis capability, and the suppression scheme needed to conceive multiple safety mechanisms, such as emergency material injection annihilation, magnetic confinement field overload, rapid physical separation, and so on. After 20 seconds, a multi-layered safety suppression scheme incorporating emergency material injection, magnetic confinement field overload, and rapid physical separation was already in place. Question 3. Design a modular magnetohydrodynamic (MHD) power generation system suitable for deep space cruising, which must efficiently recover the million degrees Celsius waste heat from the main engine's exhaust and enhance its conversion efficiency to above 55. Considerations must include magnetic field stability and electrode corrosion issues. This question was extremely simple for Vance, as it precisely identified the 2 core challenges of magnetohydrodynamic power generation: magnetic field stability requiring superconducting magnets and electrode corrosion due to high-temperature plasma erosion. Vance's hands moved swiftly, and in 2 minutes, he designed a non-electrode inductive MHD modular onboard magnetohydrodynamic power generation system. Question 4. The decay period of the quantum dot energy core is 50 standard years. Please derive the function of its output power as it changes over time, and develop an online isotope replenishment plan to ensure uninterrupted power to the ship when the core output decays to a critical value of 80. This question assesses the ability to integrate mathematical modeling with engineering applications based on the decay period of 50 years as a nuclear decay model condition. To derive the power function, Vance only thought briefly and spent 3 minutes designing a system that ensures uninterrupted power output while safely supplying the core quantum dot energy, along with adequate safety redundancy and his understanding of preventive maintenance. Question 5. Question 99. Question 100. Vance's fingers danced across the page, formulas, charts, and data flowing effortlessly as he worked. After 100 minutes, just over half the time had passed, and he completed all the questions. He took a deep breath, performed a final check, and confirmed everything was correct. Submit. In evaluation, Carl Vance, L10 level, Pasha Empire Starship Engineering Special Exam score, 89. Rating, excellent. When the word excellent caught his eye, Vance leaned back in his chair, truly relieved, his chest unconsciously puffing out. A heavy, long-lost sense of achievement washed away the days of humility and confusion. He had never felt he could measure up to the classically trained geniuses like Zhuang Bei. But even as a self-taught pirate, he had never given up on persistence and research. A score of 89 was the most powerful affirmation of all his efforts and worth over the past century. This result gave him immense comfort and confidence, proving that he was not without merit, and that this new ocean of knowledge might indeed have a path to follow. Chapter 221. The Shoulders of Giants. Generating Second Exam. Mimital Republic Starship Engineering Basic Cognitive Special Exam. Number of questions, 10 time. 200 standard points maximum score. 100, the interface refreshed. And the new exam title and number of questions made Vance pause slightly. Only 10 questions? Yet the time was extended several times, with a maximum score of 100. This setup seemed to suggest that each question required deep thought and construction. With the confidence he had just built and a hint of curiosity about this new field, he clicked to start. However, upon seeing the first question prompt, the composure on his face instantly froze. Question 1. Based on the introductory principles of nuclear physics, combined with mechanical engineering and starship engineering, design a basic conceptual model of a nuclear pulse reaction generator and briefly explain how it achieves continuous thrust through controlled energy sequences. In contrast to traditional nuclear fusion propulsion, Wang Si soon thought it over. This question seemed to be within the realm of understanding. He knew that a nuclear pulse reactor is essentially a system that periodically detonates nuclear explosives behind a spacecraft to utilize the energy from the explosions to propel it. However, the keywords controlled energy sequence and continuous stable thrust left him pondering. Pulses inevitably imply intermittent energy release. How can that be compatible with continuous stability? He tried to understand it using the principle of wave superposition, but found that conventional wave models utterly failed to explain how to derive continuous thrust from discrete pulses. 50 minutes passed in anxious contemplation, and sweat beaded on his forehead, leaving only a wasteland of thought. He almost clumsily jumped to the next question, seeking a moment of respite. Question 2. Briefly describe, within the framework of introductory high-energy physics principles, how to utilize strong interaction forces to weave a stable magnetic monopole at the femtosecond level within specific spacetime coordinates, and explain the advantages and energy loss calculations of this magnetic monopole in the application of magnetohydrodynamics for constraining ultra-high temperature plasma flows, such as in stellar cores, compared to traditional magnetic confinement methods. Wang Si. Question 3. Based on the introductory principles of quantum physics, design a quantum tunneling effect energy transmission system. The system should achieve cross-scale, from within the starship to drone swarms tens of thousands of kilometers away, instantaneous energy supply pathways that ignore conventional electromagnetic shielding. Please calculate the theoretical upper limit of the system's transmission efficiency and analyze the impact of wave function collapse on transmission stability and error correction schemes. Wang Si. Question 4. Combining introductory principles of plasma physics and electromagnetic physics, discuss how to generate a dynamic plasma membrane with partial Bose-Einstein condensate properties on the surface of a ship's shield through precise control of electromagnetic fields, enabling it to partially guide and convert the energy from directed energy weapons, such as lasers, particle beams, into stored energy for the shield, rather than completely resisting or deflecting the impact. Please establish a mathematical model for energy conversion efficiency. Wang Si. Question 5. Applying foundational knowledge of molecular engineering and nanotechnology, Design an adaptive shape memory alloy armor that can be used for the main structural material of a starship. This material should convert impact energy, such as from kinetic projectiles, into thermal energy through phase changes in its nanoscale crystal structure when subjected to impacts exceeding its yield strength, dissipating the energy along specific paths in milliseconds, while the overall material shape undergoes controlled deformation to absorb energy, and after the impact, restores its original state based on an internal energy source. Please describe the key molecular mechanisms and energy management strategies. Wang Si. Question 6. From the perspective of core physics, explain how to generate a sustainable, directionally controllable stream of gravitons within a localized space by exciting specific fluctuation patterns in the vacuum's virtual particle C, thereby simulating gravitational effects similar to those of large celestial bodies for non-contact capture or deflection of enemy ship projectiles. Calculate the minimum energy threshold required to sustain a gravitational field strong enough to deflect a battleship-class kinetic projectile and compare its energy efficiency with traditional gravitational field generation devices. Vance. Question 7. Based on the fundamental principles of graviton physics, discuss the feasibility of achieving continuous spatial curvature modulation using a controllable gravitational field generation device, warp curvature core, within the framework of space navigation engineering. From a research overview perspective, design a comprehensive experimental plan to verify the extent of the device's impact on local space-time continuity and its safety threshold when folding space, and clarify the technology's complementary or substitutive potential for existing navigation modes, such as warp engines. Vance slumped in his seat, his gaze completely vacant. The confidence he had just rekindled shattered in an instant. He realized not only that he couldn't answer the questions, but that he couldn't even grasp the technical direction or fundamental principles described in them. Even after studying with Lu Ling for some time, this was no longer a gap in knowledge. It was a chasm in cognitive dimensions. The technological prowess the Parthian Empire took pride in was, in the face of this colossal system, not even comparable to a child's building blocks. Time passed in a haze of utter confusion and self-negation. Eventually, Vance's eyes slowly refocused as he snapped back to reality. His answer sheet was almost entirely blank, save for a few scattered, fragmented, and ultimately crossed-out ideas on the first question. Exam time ended, evaluating. Carl Vance. Score on the Republic of Mamatar Fundamentals of Starship Engineering Cognition Special Exam. 0 points. 0 points? He muttered to himself, as if all his strength had been drained. Two phrases uncontrollably surfaced in his mind. Your destruction has nothing to do with you. Surpassing you, yet you cannot comprehend it. The technological peak his civilization had striven to climb with all its might was, in the face of this vast repository of knowledge, nothing more than an undetectable speck of dust at the foot of the mountain. The captain's words about standing on the shoulders of giants now took on a new and profoundly weighty meaning. His rebirth was destined to begin with acknowledging his own ignorance, a long and arduous journey to completely overturn his old world. Based on the evaluation results, the system has generated a customized learning path for you. Diagnostic conclusion. The student possesses a solid foundation in macroengineering structures and experiential intuition, but lacks a micro and high-dimensional cognitive framework for the essence of matter and energy. Learning path generated. Course modules now loading. Vance stared blankly at the diagnostic conclusion scrolling across the holographic screen. Each word felt like a needle piercing his heart. Macroengineering structures were his lifelong expertise, while micro and high-dimensional cognitive frameworks were fields whose very doors he couldn't even locate. The system interface refreshed rapidly, and a three-dimensional course tree diagram slowly unfolded, a simplified version of that daunting technological roadmap. 3 highlighted core courses are marked as priority learning sequences. NCP 101 Introduction to Core Physics. Related disciplines include high-energy physics and quantum physics. MLE 201 Fundamentals of Molecular Engineering. Related disciplines include nanotechnology and mechanical engineering. SAE 301 Principles of Curvature Drive. Fundamentals of Advanced Mathematics. Related disciplines include rocket science, plasma physics, and space navigation engineering. Recommended daily study duration, 35 standard hours. Would you like to start the Introduction to Core Physics course immediately? Vance took a deep breath. As if to gather enough courage, raised his hand, his fingers trembling slightly, but resolutely pressed confirm. The study interface instantly transformed. The initially cold test questions turning into a flowing holographic image of knowledge. At first, Vance furrowed his brow, but as the course progressed, a series of intricate mathematical derivations and experimental data gradually unfolded, and he realized that his inherent cognitive framework was being gradually dismantled. 3.5 hours flew by in intense focus. When the system prompted that today's learning time was over, Vance finally lifted his head from the ocean of knowledge. Today's learning progress. Introduction to Core Physics, 00000001. Contribution points earned. 5 LP. The hatch of the study pod slowly opened, and the sounds from the outside world rushed back into his ears. Vance stood up, his steps a bit unsteady as he walked out of this tranquil space. But at this moment, he had subtly changed from the person who had entered 3.5 hours ago. His gaze was no longer filled with frustration or reverence, but rather with a genuine confusion and burning desire, a nearly instinctive thirst for knowledge that emerged after finally glimpsing the true depths. When he looked at the students of D4 Academy again, he suddenly realized that the technologies he once found incredible might all be based on the foundational principles mentioned in the course earlier. In the corridor, several young students were discussing a shield optimization plan. Vance silently glanced at their ranks, all of them advanced engineers at L7 or even L6. One of them said, "If we use vacuum polarization compensation to optimize the phase array of the resistive shield, we might be able to break through the existing recharge rate limit." Another shook his head in disagreement. "It's difficult. The core issue is that the essence of the resistive shield is to create a localized high-energy density field for high-density deflection and buffering absorption of incoming energy impacts. The upper limit of our current phase array's energy recharge rate is constrained by the peak output power of the ship's energy core. Unless we can provide an additional energy buffer within nanoseconds, we cannot overcome the limitations of the main energy system." Vance suddenly stopped in his tracks. These terms had brushed past the edges of his cognition in the Introduction to Core Physics holographic course 3 hours ago. At that time, he only felt they were distant theoretical concepts, but now they flowed so naturally from the mouths of these young engineers. He unconsciously stepped a bit closer, pretending to check the area guide map in the corridor, but his ears were capturing every syllable. The key is the optimization of the energy compensation path. A female engineer wearing an L7 badge quickly sketched the energy flow model on a holographic interface. "If I used the enhanced variant model I created as a basis and then added dynamic energy modulation, it would be too idealistic." Her colleague, an L6 engineer, interrupted, stating that the energy fluctuations in real combat are chaotic, and our Federation's 425mm magnetic railgun volleys could destroy the carefully designed resonance conditions. Therefore, I prefer to use the absorption matrix model from Ramshield technology to dynamically disperse impact energy through periodic reconstruction of strong interaction force fields. Although the instantaneous deflection efficiency would drop by 5, the system stability and continuity would be better. Vance's fingers unconsciously traced patterns in the air, his expression focused. He didn't fully understand, but vaguely grasped something. For the first time, he realized that these seemingly fanciful terms were not isolated magical spells, but a part of a vast, coherent, and progressively layered knowledge system. So ultimately, it all comes back to the critical issue of shield energy diversion. The L6 engineer summarized, with a hint of helplessness in his tone, that the power of the deflection shield comes from energy, and all its weaknesses are also related to the management, control, distribution, and dissipation of energy. To equip a new world, indigenous, destroyer with our civilian-grade deflection shields, we must modify the reactor's energy output efficiency and total amount. But this task is not allowed to be altered. The conversation faded as the group walked toward the distant laboratory. Vance stood alone in the corridor, his gaze following the young figures. He once thought he came to learn new technologies, but now he understood he was looking at the closed entrance of the learning station. Starting today, he would have to relearn how to think. Chapter 222. The Initiation of Deification Astroclass Frigate, Confinement Chamber. Feng Ling opened her eyes in absolute silence and darkness. Her sense of time long stripped away. There was no sunrise or sunset here, only the faint hiss of circulating air and the sound of her heartbeat. Feeling the void flow away. In another corner of the cell, Yelena curled up, sleeping heavily. She glanced at the woman who was in a deep sleep, then averted her gaze. Shared misfortune? In this abyss, everyone is a solitary island sinking alone. During this time, she began to repeatedly chew over her life, like regurgitating a prey that had long since died. The authority of the Red Soldier leader, the sinking of the Night Orchid, Lu Ling's penetrating gaze, and that phrase that felt like both a curse and a prophecy, shared fate. The survival of the fittest? She once regarded it as the only truth of the universe. But before Lu Ling's absolute power, it appeared pale, like a child's babble. This statement was not inherently wrong. The difference lay in the different levels. He didn't need to devour you. With just a flick of his finger, he could completely erase you from the realm of existence, or even reshape a new one. The fear transmitted through consciousness is colder than death. It is the most fundamental denial of the self. Huh. A barely audible sneer rolled in her throat, unsure whether it was mocking her past self or the absurd predicament she faced now. The hatch slid open, and light flooded in, stinging her eyes that were accustomed to darkness. An invisible force field instantly bound her limbs, magnetic shackles clicking shut around her wrists. A drone flew in, its mechanical arm clamping onto her shoulder and lifting her off the ground. Lien stood at the doorway, still dressed in a sharp combat uniform. Her expression as indifferent as ever, but a hint of complex emotion flickered in her gaze. Feng Ling did not struggle, allowing the drone to carry her, calmly meeting Lien's eyes. Do you want to play? She had fallen asleep. Lien slowly shook her head, stepping aside to clear the passage. Let's go. People are like this. When something was once only to be admired from afar, it becomes desirable. Yet after conquering it, the interest fades. The drone suspended Feng Ling as it glided out of the confinement room. Lien silently followed at a distance. The metallic walls of the corridor reflected cold light, casting the silhouettes of the two figures, once comrades who shared warmth and secrets, now separated by insurmountable stances and time. Feng Ling closed her eyes, pushing the last trace of weakness deep within her heart. As the train traversed the vast steel structure, she gazed at the endless flow of light and the massive framework outside, feeling a profound sense of awe. The power controlled by Lu Ling was far more unfathomable than she had imagined. The pure white space of the cloning center unfolded before her, the air slightly cool. Without any pause, they entered the genetic sanctum. The drone set Feng Ling down, releasing the force field, but the magnetic shackles still locked her wrists. Her gaze swept across this futuristic area, where countless precision instruments operated silently, and several large cylindrical incubation chambers in the center emitted a ghostly blue light, resembling sleeping coffins. Then, her eyes fixed on the woman in a white lab coat, intently focused on the data screen. Greenleaf did not look up, her fingertips swiftly sliding across the holographic interface, casually instructing Lien, strip her and place her in Chamber 3. Lien paused for a moment, then silently approached, her movements remarkably practiced. As her clothing was removed, the cold air enveloped her skin. Lien pushed her into Chamber 3 and then stepped back, her eyes lowered. This is my only value, right? Feng Ling felt calm. It was a kind of liberation. Liberation? Greenleaf finally looked up, smiling slightly. It may not be that easy. The cold nutrient solution slowly filled the chamber, rising over her ankles, waist, and chest, until Feng Ling was completely enveloped. A strange sensation of weightlessness replaced gravity, and a respirator automatically aligned with her face, supplying a life-sustaining mixture of gases. Through the clear liquid and the curved walls of the chamber, everything outside became distorted and blurred, as if separated by an insurmountable time and space. Greenleaf watched as the incubation chamber sank into the genetic sanctum, her fingertip gently tapping the interface, glowing with cold light. Alpha Standard Full Spectrum Gene Sequence Scan initiated. Feng Ling felt a gentle warmth enveloping her, as if kissed by the softest sunlight on a spring afternoon, followed by an unprecedented sense of clarity sweeping over her. Her body unknowingly fell into a deep sleep, but her deeper consciousness remained acutely aware. Name: Feng Ling. Gene Tier: C. Neuron Strength: 3676 C. Muscle Strength: 2927 C. Cell Strength: 2984 C. Bone Strength: 2969 C. Organ Strength: 3045 C. Activation Sequence: 34 Efficient Recovery. Pain Perception Shielding, Dynamic Analysis, Endurance Enhancement, Stress Adaptation, Overclock Mode. In the time to come, Greenleaf will optimize and reconstruct based on her original genes, gradually forming a more perfect gene framework base within the life loom. Lu Ling occasionally checks on the progress. The creation of new beings is at the core of future development plans, with these plans extending outward based on the creation initiative. How is the progress? He placed a can of Cool Fi on the operating table. Greenleaf did not look up, her expression slightly weary. She was still operating the life loom to optimize the structure, which displayed the real-time vital signs and gene sequence stability of the Feng Ling clone. It's faster than expected, with excellent base quality and remarkable cognitive resilience, especially in deep survival instincts and neural plasticity. The gene framework optimization is very successful, with an estimated integration level of 993 for the life loom. She finally paused, turned around, and her azure pupils sparkled with excitement. She had a high chance of successfully crossing the bridge on the first attempt. How long will a cultivation cycle take? As the first experimental subject, it will take a bit longer. It's expected to enter the soul realm after about 15 days, with the overall bridging cycle taking around 3 months. Does it really take that long? Lu Ling asked, slightly puzzled. My dear boss, do you think such advanced technology is as common as cabbages by the roadside? Greenleaf shot him an annoyed glance, but her tone carried a hint of playful reproach. Every experimental subject and every resource is extremely precious. The reason I'm taking it slow is to thoroughly understand each step and accumulate enough data and experience. Only by optimizing the process can I save you a fortune in star coins later. Indeed, he had allocated 100 million star coins for the operation of the cloning center. The core database of the exotic strain lake alone cost 50 million. P.S. Eve Exotic Strain Lake Group. The exotic strain Lake Group was a significant vulnerability for a prominent supergroup for a long time. But everything changed after they established contact with a certain group. They were the first to establish trade relations with this group and gain space capsule technology from them, allowing the exotic strain Lake Group to stand out and earn billions of star coins. They continue to benefit from their good relations, possessing the most advanced technology in the outer space of their sector. Additionally, the expensive gel-based biological glue costs about 900,000 star coins per ton, and the most crucial biomass for the clone, which is even more advanced than carbon-based materials, costs 4,000 star coins for just 10 kilograms. Alright, then I'll leave this to you. Lu Ling withdrew his gaze. At this moment, Aura sent a very brief message. D2 Manufacturing Center flagship dock cleanup completed. Without waiting for Greenleaf to respond, he turned around decisively, the hem of his black trench coat billowing, and walked straight towards the exit. Greenleaf watched him leave without hesitation. The words that had come to her lips were swallowed back, and she glared at his retreating figure with some frustration, thinking how someone with the traits of a lowly being had turned wooden after being enhanced with wolfish genes. Forget it, there will be plenty of time in the future. She sighed and refocused her attention on the vast experimental data before her. D2 Manufacturing Center, flagship dock. As a stellar-class engineering complex, Lidalu has a total of 2 small flagship manufacturing docks, supported by 6 large docks, 20 medium docks, and 50 small docks, collectively forming a highly efficient shipbuilding industrial system. In the flagship dock scheduling center, Lu Ling stood before the huge observation window. The sight before him was enough to take anyone's breath away. The vast dock space towered high, as if the structure had been hollowed out and then recast with cold composite armor. Above, the lighting matrix was at full power, pouring bright light down without reservation, illuminating every corner of this space, every inch of metal, with exquisite clarity. Tens of thousands of engineering drones returned orderly to the storage chambers along the walls of the dock, like worker bees returning to their hive, having just completed the final round of nanoscale cleaning scans. Only a few teams of drones equipped with detection devices patrolled silently through the empty core area of the dock, like ghosts flickering with blue scanning beams, repeatedly verifying the final state of the gravity anchor points, energy interfaces, and data transmission matrices. Currently, the flagship dock did not have a supervisor, as no one had passed the flagship-level examination. During this time, Lu Ling had also attempted to summon laborers, but unfortunately, no senior talent in starship engineering appeared. Therefore, he had Aura personally oversee the construction of this first dreadnought, a blueprint that cost him 1.8 billion star coins, which was also the battlefield income of Lidalu since its establishment over the past half-month. Blueprint for the Divine-class dreadnought loaded successfully. Lu Ling took a deep breath. Once this ship began manufacturing, it meant Lidalu would truly be operational, with the highest priority. Let's start manufacturing. Flagship-level propulsion engine confirmation project 4. Flagship-level main gun mounting confirmation project 18. Flagship sensor group confirmation project 4. Flagship shield generator 5. Flagship armor. All materials confirmed ready. Construction sequence initialization completed. Beginning construction of the Emma Empire Divine-class dreadnought. Estimated launch time in 164 days, 23 hours, and 59 minutes. In the next moment, Lidalu awakened. A deep rumble echoed from the depths of the dock, no longer a faint hum, but a thunderous sound of energy flowing. As the core energy hubs embedded in the walls and beneath the ground of the dock began to deliver nearly limitless energy to every construction node. The first to move was the material transport channel. Dozens of giant high-speed conveyor belts, each 100 meters wide, emit a deep and powerful roar as they transport hundreds of millions of raw materials. These materials first flow to various flagship component core factories in the dock, whose main task is to manufacture the colossal machines depicted in the blueprints. Here, atomic disassemblers break down materials to the atomic level, while nanofabrication arms, with an almost delicate embroidery-like grace, arrange these fundamental particles according to the blueprints in the constraint fields generated by molecular fusion devices, achieving atomic-level precision in stacking and combining. For example, the flagship propulsion engine, known as the Divine-class main propulsion engine, has a diameter of 350 meters, along with 3 secondary engines that are 200 meters in diameter. For tertiary engines that are 100 meters in diameter, and 2 auxiliary engines that are 30 meters in diameter. Its internal structure is complex, with each engine composed of billions of nanometer-level precision parts, laying down over 10,000 kilometers of superconducting energy conduits, millions of magnetic field coils, acceleration coils, and force field coils. And this is just one of the many assemblies of the Divine-class dreadnought. Lu Ling also held her breath. This was not merely the construction of a ship. It was the culmination of humanity's ultimate understanding of the natural elements of the universe and mechanical engineering, forged into a kingdom of steel. This divine realm would ultimately conquer the starry seas. Chapter 223. The Order of Knights. A week had unknowingly passed since the commencement of the Divine Class project. Under the precise scheduling of Aura, the entire layout of the base operated like a well-wound clock, everything running efficiently and orderly. In the A1 Strategic Command Tower, the previously empty and cold atmosphere had been replaced by a warm, human touch. Lu Ling stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over the 26 focused figures at various control consoles. They were among the first core personnel summoned from the Eve world, possessing unquestionable absolute loyalty. As time went on, they continually learned and grew, becoming the nerve center for the efficient operation of the base. Naturally, Lu Ling provided the best conditions for these individuals. They enjoyed the highest welfare standards within the base. The assigned residences began with cozy 40 square meter single rooms in the F4 basic residential area, adjacent to the natural ecological zone. As their ranks increased, they could be allocated up to 200 suites in the F2 premium residential area. The cafeteria also opened exclusive windows for them, offering customized dining from a 5-star restaurant, for which Lu Ling requested several skilled culinary androids from Parker. In addition, they enjoyed a guaranteed monthly contribution point exchange with a starting permanent half price, with a minimum of 10, ensuring they could easily acquire any desired items, from smart home devices that enhance quality of life to alpha gene optimization for personal strength enhancement. They were all ordinary people, traversers just like her. Lu Ling did not prohibit socializing or dating among them. However, she would separate the Emma and Mimitar individuals, and sometimes even the Galeni and Caldari. In terms of administrative efficiency, the Caldari were the highest, which is why the Strategic Command Tower was filled with Caldari personnel. Marshal, 2 Caldari Marines saluted. They did not carry the invisible oppressive aura typical of the Dark Ravens. One of the young soldiers even seemed a bit nervous. The veteran beside him was much calmer. After Lu Ling slightly nodded in return, he whispered in a voice only the two could hear, "Relax, kid. The Marshal is not what you think." The young soldier took a deep breath, trying to loosen his shoulders, but the admiration in his eyes remained undiminished. Lu Ling slowly ascended to the highest platform. He noticed a young data analyst chewing on specialty fruit gummies from Carthage, which he had exchanged for contribution points, while rapidly processing the information flow. Meanwhile, the communications coordinator had a cup of a refreshing beverage beside him, exuding a pleasant blend of flavors from guarana mixed with a hint of mango and passion fruit. This drink was one of the most recognizable products for them, quite popular. Hence the exchange point price was very low, only 5 LP. The market price was 45 star coins for 500 kilograms. Lu Ling settled into the highest command seat, which automatically adjusted to a very comfortable position. These lively details were exactly what he wanted. Absolute loyalty should not be built on cold fear or mere material scarcity, but should stem from a sense of belonging, dignity, and the happiness of being fulfilled. Ola, has this week's average job satisfaction and quality of life assessment report for the base members come out? This had become a regular item for Lu Ling aside from military and economic briefings each week. The 4th report has been generated, not including the 50,000 newcomers registered this week. Based on anonymous surveys and physiological monitoring, overall satisfaction this week remains high at 92, an increase of 0.65 from last week. Major positive feedback concentrated on the following 5 points. 1. Superior living conditions. 35. The space, privacy, and customizable virtual landscapes of Zone F residences received widespread acclaim. Most L7 members have high expectations for promotion to Zone F2's 200 residences, creating effective motivation. 2. Quality and diversity of dining options. 28. The introduction of a team of synthetic chefs from Carthage has shown significant results, with a 42 increase in satisfaction for customized dining services. There is strong demand for natural ingredients from Carthage, such as crystal fruit from the Glass Bay and she-rock beef, maintaining high exchange rates. 3. Fairness and purchasing power of the contribution point system. 20. The permanent discount policy is well received, particularly for basic necessities and entertainment products, which are very attractive in price. 4. Leisure and entertainment facilities. 12. After the opening of the F5 Zone Starry Sky Amusement Park, visitor numbers exceeded expectations by 300, effectively alleviating long-term psychological pressure in deep space environments and significantly enhancing family cohesion among members. 5. Some members have expressed a desire for more specialty products from Carthage or their hometowns, such as specific brands of synthetic fabrics, immersive entertainment discs, and personalized home decor. The integration speed of the newly added L12 members last week decreased by 1.13 compared to the previous batch, and the adjustment period to base rules and environment is expected to be extended. The pressure for cultural adaptation and skill conversion training has increased year on year. Lu Ling quickly skimmed through the report. A satisfaction rate of 92 was an extremely healthy figure. Most of the remaining individuals were recent refugees. feeling unfamiliar in this world and needing time to acclimate. This is a side effect of rapid expansion, but fortunately, the area is large enough to have the capacity to accommodate this population. It seems that we have laid a solid foundation for stability and prosperity. Lu Ling pondered and said, Ola, you can handle the issue regarding the local specialties that the members have reported. Let Sindarin take care of the procurement. This expense is negligible for Lu Ling, who is currently earning billions in star currency weekly, yet it can enhance the loyalty and happiness of core members, making this investment extremely worthwhile. At the C5 Crew Comprehensive Training Center, inside the C519 Junior Tactical Simulation Room, Sindarin stood on the observation platform, watching the training situation of the maids below. Now, she was not only the head maid responsible for internal affairs and a personal steward, but also the leader of the newly formed Knightly Maid Corps, the Iron Cavalier, the most essential single-soldier weapon in the era of interstellar expansion, also known as the Advanced Humanoid Mobile Combat Weapon, IC. On the vast and harsh interstellar battlefield, mainstream perceptions are often dominated by the confrontations of massive ships and artillery, as the main guns of battleships can tear through darkness, and the volleys of dreadnoughts can evaporate stars. However, true warfare is never limited to grand exchanges on the front lines. In scenarios where capital ships cannot effectively deploy their devastating firepower, a more precise, flexible, and lethal weapon system occupies an irreplaceable strategic position. This is the Advanced Humanoid Mobile Combat Weapon, IC, more commonly known as the Iron Cavalier. The Empire officially claims that the Iron Cavalier is an extension of human genetic potential, and that exceptional knights can break through fleet defenses with their individual machines. But this is more of an inspiring propaganda. In reality, on the battlefield, few commanders would take such risky actions without special infiltration capabilities. The emergence and rise of the Iron Cavalier is not coincidental, but rather an inevitable result of the evolution of interstellar warfare. In the early stages of interstellar colonization, the forms of warfare were relatively simple. At that time, carrier-based aircraft played an important role as inexpensive, easily replenishable reconnaissance, harassment, and auxiliary attack units. However, with advancements in military technology and the complexity of battlefield environments, the limitations of traditional carrier-based aircraft became apparent. The original design intent of carrier-based aircraft meant they excelled in high-speed dogfights or group assaults in open spaces to seize air superiority. Yet, they were nearly powerless in executing precise operations in complex environments, such as clearing enemy forces within space stations, providing cover for boarding actions on the surfaces of massive ships, or conducting special operations in terrain-challenging planetary gravity wells. Once the enemy developed targeted high-speed point defense systems and area suppression weapons, groups of carrier-based aircraft reliant on electronic systems and fragile structures could be easily incapacitated in an instant. Ultimately, due to proportional limitations in size and speed, carrier-based aircraft were destined to carry less energy and output. Over time, the demand for a multifunctional single-soldier combat platform emerged. The military urgently needed a system that could adapt to extremely complex terrains, such as inside fortresses, ship corridors, and urban ruins, while possessing sufficient firepower to suppress enemy multi-environment units and light defensive structures. The platform needs to maintain a long-term presence in urban warfare and landing operations while ensuring high mobility, rather than just bombarding and leaving. Thus, in the early days of the Dawn era following the end of the Dark Age, breakthroughs in neural link technology led to a significant boom in the development of cavalry technology. The humanoid design maximizes environmental adaptability and the versatility of tool use, combining bipedal movement with vector thrusters, allowing stable maneuvering in various environments such as weightlessness, microgravity, and standard gravity. This design also enables the use of various equipment, from engineering tools to heavy weapons, through standardized interfaces. More importantly, with the integration of neural links, pilots can control the cavalry as if it were their own body, achieving a response speed and combat efficiency far superior to that of onboard pilots relying on joysticks and screens. Therefore, the cavalry does not replace the onboard aircraft, but rather takes on critical and lethal tactical tasks that the aircraft cannot fulfill. In grand fleet confrontations, they serve as the most reliable guards, eliminating any approaching threats. In close-quarters combat, they are irreplaceable dominators, while the onboard aircraft focus on their mission of seizing air superiority. Chapter 224. The Maid Knight Order. The Empire is martial, and cavalry technology is not only core military equipment, but also a symbol of military strength for the nobility. Maintaining a loyal and elite knight order often holds greater political value than keeping several second-line warships. At this moment, Sindarin is overseeing the maids as they conduct the most basic yet critical first-step posture training. This is the complete training manual for the Wanbei Knight Order that Ling obtained from Parker. The reason for forming this Midnight Order is that these artificial humans possess significant genetic potential. Rather than letting this talent be wasted on mundane tasks, it is better to forge it into a sword and shield for their protection, which can also be a feast for the eyes. After all, combat maids are quite appealing. This basic outline for cavalry pilots has been modified by Aura to become more reasonable and even includes a specifically designed training system. 88 maids, dressed in specially designed sensory training suits, stand in neat rows. The training suits fit every inch of their skin, restricting their range of motion while providing real-time feedback on their physical data. Once everyone is in position, the biomechanical synchronization correction system is activated. Sindarin orders the execution of simulated gravity training. 6x gravity environment simulation activated. Remaining time 9 minutes and 59 seconds. A humming sound suddenly arises, and an invisible force instantly envelopes the entire area. The six-fold gravity acts like an invisible giant hand, forcefully pressing everyone down to the ground with irresistible strength. The air becomes as thick as lead, and each breath requires immense effort from the chest and diaphragm. Blood flows heavily towards the lower limbs. If an ordinary human were present, their internal organs would have ruptured, bones broken, overwhelmed by their own weight. However, as the pride of the Wanbei family's technological achievements, these 88 artificial maidens merely sink down together. Their knees bend slightly, and their powerful Achilles tendons and quadriceps instantly tense up, enduring the sudden pressure load. The muscle lines under the training suit became clearer. This is an essential process that all riders will experience. Moreover, maintaining a perfect, static posture conducive to force transmission is far more challenging than simply standing. The purpose of this system is to simulate the extreme overload environment created in the cockpit when the rider is performing high-speed maneuvers, making emergency evasions, or enduring significant thrust. It is designed to train the cardiovascular system and core muscle groups, ensuring that under overload conditions, the brain receives sufficient blood supply, remains alert, and can precisely control the body, accurately transmitting operational commands to the vehicle, rather than fainting or losing control during the initial high-G maneuver. Adjusting breathing and controlling heart rate. A 3-minute break. Preparing for the next session, shock resistance and stability training. The 3 minutes of rest pass quickly. The attendants utilized this brief moment to adjust their breathing, hydrate, and the internal circulation system of the training suit swiftly dissipated residual heat while infusing liquids rich in energy and electrolytes. Despite the fatigue, everyone maintained a high level of focus. The second session, shock resistance and stability training, began. Sindarin took control once again. Training environment reset. Loading random vector impact sequence and high-frequency vibration module. Remaining time 3 minutes and 59 seconds. In an instant, the floor and walls of the training room seemed to come alive. No longer was there uniform pressure, but rather erratic, high-frequency vibrations from all directions, with waves of force and direction completely random, violently impacting everyone without warning. They had to remain still and perceive the direction of these fluctuations through the simulated inertia system. This training aims to prepare riders for the immense impact forces and complex vibrations experienced during real combat when hit by artillery, undergoing severe collisions, or performing high-speed evasive maneuvers. The goal is to enhance the rider's skeletal strength, joint stability, and neural reflex speed, ensuring that in the moment of impact, the body instinctively buffers and stabilizes, maintaining precise control over the vehicle rather than being scattered or losing consciousness. In the midst of this chaos, Lean stood like a delicate doll in a storm. Her long, straight silver hair flowed like a moonlit stream, with a few rebellious strands sticking to her smooth, sweat-drenched forehead. This hair color is a proud result of the eternal silver gene expression developed by the workshop, symbolizing eternal purity. Her face is a masterpiece crafted by artificial engineering masters. With fair skin and features so exquisite, they resemble a molecularly modeled ethereal being, perfect and flawless. Most striking are her violet eyes, where tiny data streams occasionally flicker like stars deep within her pupils, an external manifestation of a deep neural interface in standby mode. Below her left eye, a small, tear-shaped mole adds an oddly fragile charm to her cool demeanor. When the chaotic impacts and vibrations descended, Lean's body reacted even before her consciousness did. Her knee joints and hip joints constantly adjusted their angles, while her core muscles tightened and relaxed like precision springs, skillfully guiding the powerful force that surged from the side and dispersing it throughout her body. Her physique swayed violently like a strong bamboo in the wind. Yet her roots were deeply embedded in the earth. Lean's birth took place in the cold cultivation tank of the Zhuangbi family's biological laboratory. Nutrient solution replaced amniotic fluid, and what was injected into her body was not maternal love, but pre-configured gene sequences and foundational skill modules. She was the third batch of qualified products from the Zhuangbi Super Made Android project, numbered DL037N. The original design aimed to serve the core family members, embodying high efficiency, obedience, and an aesthetically pleasing appearance. Waking up in the cultivation tank, absorbing knowledge, and learning etiquette, combat, and service skills felt like reading a cold instruction manual, deeply imprinted in her consciousness. She understood that she was born to serve others, with loyalty ingrained in her genetic makeup. They were the proud technological achievements of the Zhuangbi family, and also the most advanced tools. However, occasionally, Lin felt an inexplicable emptiness, or rather, a sense of incompleteness. The androids were emotionally detached, but not devoid of feelings. It was not until she was given as a gift to Lu Ling and integrated into this guard-made knight regiment that she began to grasp her instincts. Hold on, train your instincts. The voice of DL011N pierced through the deafening roar, clearly reaching her ears. Cindeline, the most outstanding among them. She was once the only one with a name, bestowed by the Creator. But now, the original told them that everyone had names, given by the new master. In reality, it was aura. Instincts. Lin's thoughts stirred. She sensed something different within her body. Something was stirring deep inside. Initially, she merely analyzed the impact vector, adjusting her optimal muscle response posture and breathing rhythm to maintain stability with minimal energy consumption. However, the continuous high-intensity impacts hammered at her nerves, joints, and bones. Gradually, an indescribable feeling seemed to awaken amidst this pounding. A scorching pleasure surged as another immense force pressed down from above. Her knees slightly sank, and the powerful quadriceps and Achilles tendon unleashed astonishing strength, not only stabilizing her, but also converting some of the impact into instant potential energy. The soles of her feet felt the high-frequency vibrations from the ground. This sensation was no longer merely a disturbance to resist, but rather allowed her to hear the flow of power more clearly. An unprecedented sense of exhilarating freedom swept over her. This feeling was like tearing apart that made outfit, shattering the elegant and refined decorum with a single punch. In her violet eyes, flames finally ignited. Lin no longer merely satisfied herself with maintaining posture. She began to actively feel, master, and even enjoy the power. As a particularly complex composite impact hit her, layered with high-frequency rotational torque, previously she would have chosen the safest full-body resistance strategy. But at this moment, a more intricate and bolder plan formed instantaneously in her mind. Her body was like the most flexible alloy, dissipating destructive energy with a nearly dance-like subtle spiral motion, shedding most of its harmful attributes. The entire movement was fluid and graceful, even carrying a strange sense of dynamic beauty. Zindelin's gaze seemed to linger on her for a moment longer. Lin didn't notice, as she was completely immersed in this newfound experience. The inexplicable emptiness that had lingered in her heart, the sense of being a flawed, perfect tool, was now being filled by this continuous surge of power that truly belonged to her. So this is my strength. When the terrifying vibrations and impacts finally ceased, Lin slowly straightened up. Her slightly disheveled, grayish-silver hair swayed. Her breath was slightly rapid, and the beautiful muscle lines beneath her training suit were still gently undulating, radiating warmth. Unlike others, her eyes were bright, gazing down at her slender fingers, gradually clenching into a fist, the fire in her eyes transforming into a sharp desire. The true Lin had awakened. Chapter 225, The Leap in Strength C3 Medical Center, Genetic Correction Department. The hatch of the cultivation pod slid open with a faint hissing sound as pressure was released. Lien slowly opened her eyes, her ice-blue irises becoming sharper and colder. She stepped barefoot onto the cold metal floor, an unprecedented subtle sensation instantly coursing through her body from the soles of her feet. Cold. But it was not just the temperature. She could even hear the faint sound of the microscopic structure of the alloy deforming under weight, and as her foot lifted, it regained its resilience. She could also feel the almost motionless airflow in the air brushing against the fine new hairs on her skin with a slight resistance. The world had changed. Is this the world of the sea levels? She subconsciously looked down at her hands. The skin was still fair, seeming unchanged from when she was at D level. How does it feel? Greenleaf approached with a report in hand. A new world, Lien replied. She then closed her eyes. Taking a deep breath, the air filled her lungs. Oxygen was efficiently extracted and delivered, the entire process smooth, comfortable, and intoxicating. The thoughts in her mind ran at an unprecedented bandwidth and speed, quick as lightning, yet there was a strange tranquility of having control over everything. This ultimate control over her body reminded her of the moment she resonated perfectly with the Frost Iron Cavalry for the first time, but this time, she was harnessing the power of her newly reshaped, almost divine body. She opened her eyes, and deep within her ice-blue pupils, it seemed like a flash of substantive electricity flickered and vanished. At that moment, another cultivation pod opened beside her, and Lu Ling stepped onto the cold floor. His muscular form more balanced and perfect, his life force surging, clearly stabilized at D level. He flexed his wrist, adapting to the newfound strength. Then noticed Lien with a hint of surprise in his tone. "Oh, you're awake." Without a word, Lien stepped forward, her right knee naturally bending as she knelt on one knee, completely unaware that she was currently without any clothing. A set of movements flows seamlessly, filled with an inward beauty of strength. It is no longer the initial posture of struggle and submission, but rather like an unparalleled sword that has finally found its perfect wielder, resonating with a sense of belonging. Martial. What she feels is a leap in the level of life. The complex and unspoken emotions and desires that once troubled her regarding Feng Ling begin to melt away like ice and snow under the sun in the face of absolute power. In their place arises something pure, an absolute reverence for the one who has granted her a new life, and an unbreakable loyalty, forged anew. Lu Ling is well aware that the alpha gene optimization itself will strengthen this loyalty, as exemplified by Shiwana. Drones deliver sets of clothing. Lu Ling swiftly picks up her pants and, seeing Lien still kneeling, raises an eyebrow and asks, "What are you waiting for? For me to help you up?" Lien silently stands and quickly dresses. Just then, the remaining cultivation pods behind them open one after another, awakening members of Feng Ling's long-trained personal guard, the Falling Swallow Squad. Lu Ling observes the dignified women before her and says blandly, "It seems you are quite satisfied with your choice to follow me. Do you regret it?" Lien lowers her head, her voice clear and firm. "I am willing to be the blade in your hand, cutting through all obstacles. I am willing to be the marshal's blade, cutting through all obstacles." Behind her, 10 members of the Falling Swallow Squad kneel in unison, their spines straight as spears. A silent resonance of shared strength flowing between them. Lien understands that from this moment on, this elite force has been irrevocably marked by Lu Ling. Completely severed from the era of Feng Ling get moving, Lu Ling waves her hand. "Don't just focus on feeling the power. Go to the Marine Corps Extreme Training Center for a comprehensive test. 1 hour later, gather at hangar number 3. Then she turns to Greenleaf, "Prepare the data backup. The process for the reverse weakened version of Alpha can begin." Understood. The reason Lu Ling trains them is to prepare for the future Night Order. Because Eve also has advanced mecha technology, shields, energy systems, and so forth. In time, this will become a true sharp blade. Unlike drones, this unit can perform tasks that drones cannot, such as capturing individuals and infiltrating enemy lines. Additionally, Lu Ling needs to reorganize the existing forces, categorizing the locals and system forces. After all, the locals are somewhat weaker and may not keep pace with Sai Rui and Inya during battles. Remaining solely in logistics is not feasible. They may need to be enhanced when necessary. At that moment, a message from Aura lights up. "Captain, the projects you are monitoring, Stracius-class cruiser and Sabertooth-class interceptor destroyer, have been completed." "Oh, so fast." D2 Manufacturing Center, M1 Medium Dock. The train connection hatch opens, and Lu Ling steps alone into the passage leading to the dock's interior. Passing through 2 sequentially opening airlock doors, her vision opens up wide. He stood on an observation corridor high above the dock, with gray high-strength composite material beneath his feet. The cold alloy wall panels on both sides of the corridor extended forward, naturally directing one's gaze toward the vast core area of the dock. The enormous space resembled a hollowed-out mountain belly, with a zoned lighting system that focused most of the light sources in the center of the dock, casting the surrounding wall chambers and maintenance platforms into relative dimness, further highlighting the massive object suspended in the central fixed force field. The Stracius-class cruiser, measuring 404 meters in length. What stands out most about this cruiser is its unique circular sister rings at the stern, with a diameter of 330 meters. Like the Astro class, the Stracius class belongs to the fleet of the Sisterhood, SOE, faction. It is one of the first ships manufactured by the Sisterhood for cloning pilots, developed by the Refugee Legion. Thanks to the relentless efforts of the Sisterhood and the exquisite craftsmanship of the Refugee Legion, the Stracius class is more flexible and robust, perfectly aligning with the ideals of space explorers: safety, discretion, stealth, and full functionality. It excels at navigating dangerous airspace, capable of uncovering unknown mysterious treasures and safely retreating with the spoils. Its engine can utilize multiple energy sources, allowing it to handle any conflicts between the cargo in its large hold and the internal systems with ease. It silently hovered there, relying on the dock's fixed devices. "Ola, are the new equipment installed? All systems ready. Stracius-class cruiser, 100 completion, system initialization complete, energy core stable at low power, all modules passed inspection. Ready for docking and launch tests. Notify Shivina and the others to come for the trial voyage." This ship is priced at 8.9 billion star coins in the marketplace. However, with the acquisition of Lidalu, the cost incurred is less than 1/10. Because the minerals extracted from a large-scale war are far too abundant. Lu Ling opened the production list. Flagship Dock 1, under construction. Divine-class Dreadnought, expected launch in 149 days. Flagship Dock 2, preparing for construction. Orca-class industrial command ship, expected construction to start in 24 days. Large Docks 1 and 2, under construction. Maelstrom-class battleship 2, expected launch in 52 days. Large Dock 3, preparing for construction. Punkuan-class battleship, expected construction to start in 21 days. Large Dock 4, under construction. Sleipner-class command battlecruiser, expected launch in 8 days. Large Dock 5, preparing for construction. Mammoth-class transport ship, expected construction to start in 16 days. Medium Dock 216, under construction. Bayonet-class cruiser 15, expected launch in 16 days. Medium Dock 1718, under construction. Sickle-class logistics cruiser 2, expected launch in 4 days. Medium Dock number 1920, under construction. 1 Cycler-class, 1 Hawk-class, expected to launch in 15 days. Small Dock number 13, under construction. 3 Hound-class stealth special duty corvettes, expected to launch in 8 days. Small Dock No. 46, under construction. 3 short sword-class interceptor corvettes, expected to launch in 10 days. Small Dock number 750, under construction. 44 Charger-class mining corvettes, expected to launch in 2 days. Looking at the list, Lu Ling took a deep breath. This is the terrifying aspect of Alia. After full industrial operation, all resources and future income potential had been calculated with extreme precision. The warehouses were basically empty. And even he himself only had a pitifully little over 15 million in cash left. In the DT-7770 meat grinder, what Lu Ling gained the most was not star coins, but a massive deposit of trillions of tons of salvageable ore, which could be brought back and refined into an endless supply of titanium alloy, isotopic aggregates, quasi-crystals, and various rare metal materials. As the saying goes, this is not just a game providing a few metal scraps. No one is better at snowballing than Alia. The intelligent machine mother nest? Isn't that just it? P.S. In case someone can't see this, I'm putting it here. Don't worry about balance issues. The Empire is just a starter village. Eve Industry is this strong. When I asked logistics for ships, there were none on the first day. And by the second day, the hangar had dozens of battleships and command ships added. And this is just a small group. Larger groups are even more impressive. Writing a novel is easy. Writing a good one is hard. Sometimes no matter how I write, I'm not satisfied. Which is why updates are slow. Chapter 226. Yelena headquarters of the Black Coal Mine. G7 prison, number 0001. Dark. Cold. The residual effects of the ice prison seemed to have seeped into her bones, causing her to tremble slightly. Yelena opened her eyes and slowly sat up from the cold ground. Her golden hair, once like moonlight, was now dull and lifeless. Tangled, and some strands stuck to her pale, dehydrated cheeks. In the darkness, only her ice-blue eyes retained a faint glimmer. How many days had it been? Yelena couldn't remember. First the ice prison, then here. Rosanella, Fengling, one by one taken away by that man. The black sails were destroyed, the Blood Rose was deemed space trash. And the glory of the Jyland family, painstakingly built by her forebears, was completely buried, leaving her, once a lofty princess, reduced to a prisoner without even control over her own life and death. Everything in the past was like shattered glass, leaving only sharp fragments that repeatedly cut into her remaining consciousness. Yelena remained silent, not understanding why that man did not kill her. Bored. A sneer rolled in her throat, heavy with self-mockery. She once viewed the universe as a stage to showcase personal aesthetics, humming lazy tunes while waltzing through the fires of death. Now, the stage had collapsed. The audience dispersed, leaving her, the fated protagonist, to rot in an unremarkable corner. The elderly man, Sir Black Sails, unexpectedly felt a wave of sadness wash over him. Memories uncontrollably drifted back to that old restaurant in the sky city of Blackwater Bay, which never opened to the public. Artificial sunlight streamed through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow on the pristine white tablecloth. His face, etched with deep lines, had only a pair of sharp eyes, but in front of her, they always radiated clumsy kindness. Watching his daughter's plate piled high with roasted meat, he habitually furrowed his brow. Silently, he picked up the serving chopsticks and stubbornly tried once again to push the few green vegetables she disliked toward her. Just eat a little, he said in a low voice, raspy from years of giving orders, yet his tone was almost pleading. These are energy vegetables I got from someone in a distant land. They're good for your body. You need to be strong. Don't make me worry all the time. Ugh, so annoying, old man. I said I won't eat. She impatiently pushed aside his hands, which had once terrified countless people, the silver cutlery clinking crisply against the porcelain plate. Her mind was preoccupied with how to make the next appearance of the Blood Rose even more stunning and fearsome. His gentle gaze lingered on her impatient face for a moment, before it turned into a barely audible sigh. He silently pushed the vegetables back onto his own plate, and carefully cut several pieces of her favorite perfectly roasted rib from the rock bowl, slowly pushing them toward her. Your mother said you have a stubborn temperament and that I should keep a close eye on you. Well, you've grown up after all, he said, taking small bites and rambling on. But how can I watch over you? Out there, you must be extremely careful. Leilina only ate the ribs, elegantly wiping her mouth. Got it, old man. I need to get to work. What work? Sir Blacksails asked, a bit surprised. It's a secret. Be careful and remember to come home. He replied. That silent retreat, that cautious concern she once dismissed, now turned into the sharpest sting, piercing her heart with a fine, dense pain. Old man, I didn't expect this would be our last meeting, Leilina murmured to herself. There's no home anymore. She couldn't even protect herself. Raising her head, the dark cage pulled her back to reality. There was no time here, no sound, only her heartbeat and breath magnified in the absolute silence, like a drumbeat. Suddenly, the lights turned on. The darkness was instantaneously dispelled, and the wall directly ahead became transparent. A blurry figure gradually came into focus before her. It was that man. He stood there as if he had always been there, the darkness simply having faded away to reveal him. He still wore that seemingly simple black uniform, devoid of any embellishments, yet it felt out of place in this desperate cage. The man's expression was calm, betraying no emotion. But the companion who had always followed him like a shadow was nowhere to be seen. Leilina Gillen, direct descendant of the Gillen family of the autonomous region of Juamb, captain of the Blood Rose Destroyer, and one of the 7 captains of the Black Sails Pirates. The indifferent gaze swept over her withered golden hair, pale cheeks, and those ice-blue eyes that tried to maintain the last shred of pride. The elite knights of the Empire possessed above-average neural reflex speed and spatial awareness. They scored 80 in cavalry control and 80 in battlefield situational awareness, excelling in formulating high-risk, high-reward solo assault tactics. Your father, the old nobleman who attempted to restore the family's reputation and cleanse the dark sails, agreed to the gathering of the Phoenix Bell to save you, but in doing so, he buried the last hope of the Gillen family's revival, shattering both your stage as the Dark Sail Princess and any chance of redemption. A nobleman? Which nobleman? There is no noble of the Gillen family in Zhuangbai. Oh, 80 years ago, perhaps there was, but enough. Yelina's body trembled, not from the cold, but from an uncontrollable humiliation. Lu Ling's words were like a cold rasp, mercilessly grinding against her already battered self-esteem. She suddenly raised her head, beneath her disheveled golden hair. Her ice-blue eyes were cold, and tears uncontrollably streamed down, blurring her vision and rolling down her pale cheeks, leaving burning traces. What do you know? You know nothing. Yet Lu Ling showed no reaction, merely continuing. Did I say something wrong? ISNT at your foolishness, your stupidity. That led you to easily agree to cooperate with the Phoenix Bell and your blind confidence in the Dark Sail's power, as well as in your own strength. That ultimately dragged your father into the abyss. The last hope of the Gillen family was shattered because of you. Lu Ling's deep gaze locked onto her tear-streaked face. Shut up, she screamed hoarsely, her voice cracking, completely losing the languid allure she had when they first met, replaced only by a beast-like, desperate wail. Stop talking. Don't say any more. If you just want to see me like this, then you've succeeded. She seemed to muster all her strength to retort, but found herself unable to articulate a single coherent defense. Because what Lu Ling said was the truth, bloody and undeniable. Lu Ling quietly watched her for a few seconds, his gaze seeming to penetrate through all her disarray and screams, seeing the heart that was collapsing within. He didn't press further, only feeling a twinge of disappointment. You want to see this kind of me? He repeated, his tone calm. What I saw back then was not just a shell that screams and wallows in self-pity. He paused, his gaze sweeping over her withered golden hair and pale face, shaking his head. I thought you still had some backbone, even if reduced to a prisoner. Your eyes still burned with the fierce desire to drag all your enemies into hell. Each of Lu Ling's words recounted the former Yelina. Cruel, unyielding, beautiful, wild, confident, murderous, insane, and glamorous. I used to think you were somewhat interesting and worth investing in. His tone suddenly turned bland. Now it seems that the ice prison has not only worn away your pride, but also stripped you of the last bit of resilience that supported you. Since that's the case, I have plenty of shells. Lu Ling slowly turned away, his voice indifferent as he delivered his final words. I never force anyone. Prepare yourself. Someone will take you on your way shortly. With that, the cage plunged back into darkness. The words on the road echoed in her mind like a final death knell. No, I can't die. I haven't found my father yet. I haven't revived the Gillen family. I still have value. I still have a chance. Wait. The lights in the cell did not illuminate immediately, and the darkness remained thick, as if testing the resolve behind her cry. In the silence, only her own rapid heartbeat and heavy breaths resounded like a drum. Yelina took a deep breath, summoning her last strength to straighten her back, her gaze unwavering and resolute. She finally understood what Lu Ling meant. She fully comprehended it. The lights suddenly brightened, and Lu Ling's figure still stood behind the transparent wall, as if he had never left. The breakdown and tear stains on Yelina's face had vanished, replaced by a cold calmness forged from complete shattering. She raised her hand, slowly untangling her withered golden hair, revealing a pale face that no longer flinched. Her ice-blue eyes locked onto Lu Ling, all her arrogance, unwillingness, and grievances forcibly suppressed deep within, replaced by a near-cruel clarity and acceptance. I understand, you don't need an empty shell, you need a blade. Her voice was clear, a knife that was obedient, sharp, and would never turn against its master. She slightly lowered her eyelids, her long eyelashes casting shadows on her pale cheeks. A gesture of submission, yet still carrying a trace of the pride that belonged to Yelena. Please keep me. My soul is still here, and I will prove my worth. Lu Ling quietly watched her, their gazes silently meeting through the glass of the cage, and Yelena eventually lowered her head. The cell fell into a brief silence. Just as she felt anxious, she looked up again, only to find herself alone. When did this happen? Soon after, the hatch opened. Lian walked in. She was dressed in a fitted black training suit, her lines balanced and harmonious, in stark contrast to Yelena's memory of her as a fierce opponent on the battlefield. Lian's gaze was calm now, her sharpness completely withdrawn, no longer holding a trace of her previous coldness. The cell door opened, and the sound of military boots on the cold metal floor was crisp and rhythmic, particularly jarring in the quiet cell. Yelena instinctively tensed her body. Although she tried hard to maintain her composure, she recognized Lian all too well. They had once been rivals, briefly clashing on the battlefield. She had even regarded Lian and her Crimson Devil as mere fish to be crushed. Lian's gaze fell on Yelena, devoid of mockery, pity, or any waves of old acquaintanceship. Get up. Yelena's throat felt dry as she struggled to stand. Her golden waves of hair withered, her cheeks pale. Lian seemed to see through her discomfort, stepping aside to clear the path to the door. Go. As Yelena passed through the transparent wall that had once isolated her from everything, she couldn't help but glance back at the dark, cold, and despairing cage, which she had thought was her end. After leaving the prison, the brightly lit corridor awaited outside, filled with a faint metallic scent, a stark contrast to the silence of the cell. There are many people here, all dressed in outfits representing various departments. Occasionally, someone nods to Lian, glancing over Yelena's disheveled appearance with mild scrutiny, but without much surprise. Yelena sees order, a powerful order. I once stood at a crossroads, Lian suddenly says. Yelena's heart trembles slightly as she looks up to see Lian's straight posture ahead. Dignity and pride sometimes need to be redefined in the face of absolute power and survival. She continues walking and says, it seems you can't bear to part with it, can you? This statement pierces through Yelena's artificially maintained cold exterior like a precise needle. But this time, it touches something deeper and more intense than mere survival instinct. I can't bear to part with it. Yes, she can't bear to part with it. But it's not her life she's reluctant to lose. What she can't bear is her father, that old nobleman, who may never hear a word about his daughter until his death. What she can't bear is her name, Jilan Yelena. She doesn't want her life to quietly decay and rot, especially after witnessing a higher power. Lian does not urge her. Ahead lies the transportation hub, where the train awaits. Yes, I can't bear to part with it, Yelena whispers, her voice heavy with determination. I have too much to hold on to. Lian turns back, pausing at the platform of the hub, her voice clear. Yelena, you have made a choice you won't regret. Chapter 227, Structural Reorganization in the Black Coal Mine, a one-zone, strategic command tower, top-floor conference room. The room is brightly lit, and outside the porthole lies the dark, boundless void of space. The conference room seats around 200, but this is a small meeting room with a streamlined long table at the center, featuring only 9 chairs. Lu Ling sits at the head of the table, her figure blending into the dark background, with only her calm, steady eyes occasionally flashing with sharpness. On both sides of the long table, the core power of the Terror Hunters is present. This is a meeting limited to the L0 and L1 core permissions. On the left, led by Brutus Ray, representing absolute force and order. Beside him, Meta Christine has a more reserved and calm demeanor. As the new commander of the mining fleet, she steers the lifeline of the entire faction. On the right side, 2 locals sit. Sawina's steely blue eyes show no distractions. Only absolute obedience and focus on the person at the head. Next to her is the head of the Greenleaf Cloning Center and the medical department, who has recently joined the Corps. She wears a pristine white medical uniform, her ample figure appropriately wrapped, and her neatly tied ash-gray hair accentuates the depth of her youthful eyes. Aura's invisible presence permeates the entire space, but everyone knows she is everywhere. Lu Ling does not offer an opening statement, lightly tapping her fingers on the table, and a holographic projection appears. The old model can no longer support future expansion. Her voice grows steadier, echoing in the silent conference room. From today onward, the Terror Hunters will implement a new structure. Aura, record my decision. Approval of Supreme Administrator Authority. Effective immediately, starting today, the Terror Hunters will establish 2 fleets. One is the Guardian Fleet, and the other retains the name, Terror Hunters First Fleet. Lu Ling continued. I will lead the Guardian Fleet. He looked to the left, where Major General Brute Siri was appointed as the commander of the Terror Hunters First Fleet. All subsequent warships will be prioritized for integration into the First Fleet to strengthen the main force, and all combat resources will be supplied as a priority. I want this fleet to become a formidable force capable of independent operations in the shortest time possible. Understood, Marshal, Siri responded briefly. The Thetheus-class saber-toothed tiger interceptors will be assigned to the Guardian Fleet. All other vessels will be under the command of Major General Siri. In fact, Lu Ling's intention was clear. From now on, he would act as a hands-off manager, responsible for external affairs, diplomacy, and financial matters. Siri would focus on training the fleet, maintaining it, commanding it, and improving overall combat effectiveness. The clone experiment requires a significant amount of time for verification. He certainly couldn't send everyone through the full set of resilient psychology capsules. Could he? P.S. Skill capsules allow for instant learning, with the capsule price being 5 times that of skill books. Resilient psychology, psychological training can enhance a pilot's mental endurance. The process of separating a person's consciousness from their physical body and injecting it into a mature clone is difficult for those who have not undergone this training to accept. The price for basic resilient psychology is 1 million star coins, with Omega training taking 71 hours and Alpha taking 10 times longer. Advanced resilient psychology costs 40 million star coins, with Omega training taking 148 hours and Alpha taking 15 times longer. Elite resilient psychology costs 500 million star coins, with Omega training taking 74 days and Alpha taking 20 times longer. Expert resilience psychology costs 5 billion star coins, with Omega training taking 412 days and Alpha taking 30 times longer. Furthermore, skill books are currently the only essential items that Lu Ling can only purchase from the Eve Star domain market. To fill the knowledge pillar, he has already invested hundreds of millions of star coins in skill books. Thus, it is evident how difficult it is to find individuals with mental resilience. Command approved. Subsequently, Lu Ling turned to Christine. Christine, you will serve as the Chief Executive Officer of the Black Coal Mine Mining Fleet. The resource line is the lifeline, and your priority is on par with Siri. All mining ships will be integrated into the base mining team. Understood, Marshal. Command approved. After establishing the Guardian Fleet, the Terror Hunters First Fleet, and the Black Coal Mine Mining Fleet, Lu Ling's gaze shifted to the right. Shervina. Yes, the formation of the 8 Knights is officially established. You, Vela, Sheen, Gira, Dennis, Helene, Rika, and Saya will report directly to me. You will lead the Guardian Fleet, and I will allocate resources accordingly. Omniscience and omnipotence will be your standards. Yes, command approved. The Guardian Knights will be formed, composed of Lien, Yelena, and the original Falling Goose Guards, including the temporarily modified Iron Cavalry, stationed on the Thetheus-class cruisers. The Guardian Corps will be formed, led by Blood Shark, Ghost Crocodile, and Ken, along with their original teams, integrated into the Thetheus-class Cruisers Marine Corps. The Maid Knight Corps has been established under the leadership of Zindalin, stationed at the Haimayo for training. From now on, you will have direct authority and management over this. Both power and responsibility will increase simultaneously. Zywina's expression was calm as she slightly bowed her head to accept. This group is entirely composed of locals, and the reason lies in the cultural gap with the Eve world, language, knowledge, skill levels, and cognitive differences. Even if they were placed in the hands of professional commanders like Sai Rue and Enya, it would still be challenging for them to keep up with the pace of these seasoned leaders. Thus, Lu Ling decided to take charge personally, as infiltration behind enemy lines would be more manageable and interesting for these locals. Command approved. Finally, Lu Ling's gaze fell on Levayu. Levayu, Lu Ling's voice remained steady, but the content pointed to a deeper level. The cloning center and medical department will be under your full responsibility. At the same time, the God-making plan will be entirely hosted by you. He paused slightly, allowing the weight of this statement to sink in. Resource allocations will be inclined towards you and Kristen. Any resource demands should be reported to Aura. Your results will determine the limits of our future strength. Levayu leaned slightly forward. Understood, Marshal. Command approved. With the instructions completed, Lu Ling leaned back slightly. From today onwards, everyone will perform their duties, and related welfare measures must be properly distributed. When I am not present, Aura will oversee overall development. Her directives will be my will. He did not mention the consequences. Those present were all his loyal subordinates. In the future, the organization will inevitably grow larger, and the regulations cannot continue as before with a hit-and-run approach. That will be all. Lu Ling announced directly, Aura. Synchronize permissions and initiate the new structure. The crowd stood up solemnly and left to transfer authority. Outside the porthole, the starry sky was dark and silent. An emerging powerful force was awakening and rising. Lu Ling sat alone in the main seat, his gaze penetrating deep space. The phase of farming has ended. The sword is about to be unsheathed. Chapter 228. Jungle Warfare at the headquarters of Haimayo, Port, R04 Medium Dock. The massive dock resembled a canyon artificially carved out, with a supply transport platform on the left and a bustling personnel landing platform on the right. In the metallic canyon, the colossal Styx-class cruiser stood majestically. The ship measured 404 meters in length, clad in the unique cold white base armor of the Sisterhood, reflecting a matte texture that blended ceramic and metal under the intense port floodlights. Most striking was the enormous circular structure at the ship's stern, the Sister Ring. With a diameter of 330 meters, pulsing with faint blue ripples that distorted the surrounding space. The Styx-class cruised quietly, stabilized by the docking force field, traction beams, and mechanical locks, creating a stunning contrast between the massive white vessel and the busy tiny figures around it. Meanwhile, hundreds of people were hastily coming through a corridor at the landing platform. Among the crowd, Bloodshark Thomas's face was wrinkled like a dried fruit. This former assault team leader of the Red Soldier Pirate Group had mixed into the 5th Logistics Marine Corps of the Death Vortex due to his merits, becoming a well-known slacker. At this moment, however, he was staring at the information on his wrist, his eyes nearly popping out. What? I got promoted? Commander of the Guard Corps? Frontline unit? Salary and bonuses doubled? His voice trembled, filled with disbelief. Congratulations, boss. You've become a regular military unit. Some uninformed subordinates cheered beside him. What do you mean, boss? You should call him Commander Bloodshark. No, it's Commander Thomas of the Guard. No. A wailing cry, sharp and mournful, echoed through the corridor. Some people, not understanding the situation, congratulated Bloodshark on his promotion, while only about 30 silent figures, including Ghost Crocodile and others who had previously completed missions, remained quiet. A regular military unit? What qualifications did he, Bloodshark, have? You should take a look at who the regular military's opponents are now. For example, last time, those experts from Silver Wing could sprint 100 meters in under 5 seconds and could withstand 7 or 8 tons, casually handling a 1-ton ship gun. One person could take down a string of monsters. But in front of the Dark Crow, they were like little chicks, afraid of accidentally using too much force and crushing them. Bloodshark's best tactic was retreating when the enemy advanced, retreating further when the enemy retreated, sneaking into the village, avoiding gunfire, getting caught and calling for Crow Brother, then calling out 666 nearby. Did you find out? Where's my Crow Brother? The hurriedly returning squad leader looked grim. In the first fleet, Bloodshark felt a darkness before his eyes. At the end of the corridor, it suddenly opened up. Before him stood the towering, pristine hull of a Stepheus-class vessel. Bloodshark, as if losing his soul, looked around and finally caught sight of the Death Vortex not far away, immediately stumbling towards it, crying out, Crow Brother, how can we live without you? Just then, a boarding notification popped up on everyone's wristbands. All crew members of the Stepheus class, please complete boarding at port R04 within 20 minutes. The docking entrance will soon close. Boss, look at that, a subordinate exclaimed. Everyone's gaze was drawn to the scene on the other side of the port. A row of massive armored gates was slowly lifting, revealing an open structure deeper inside. Following that, 11 heavy transport drones ascended one after another, with towering humanoid machines, each 20 meters high, suspended beneath them. The armor of these steel giants reflected a cold, harsh light, firmly locked in specialized hangars, smoothly moving towards the side hangar of the Stepheus class. In addition, more drones and supply boats were delivering vast amounts of supplies into the ship's body. Subsequently, small floating trays carrying various precision instruments and boxes silently glided along the light tracks into the smaller docking port. These boxes were marked with medical symbols, data analysis cores, or communication relay modules. The most numerous were the nutritional supplements, with refrigerated boxes bearing green crosses and spiral DNA symbols, all containing top-tier products from Zhuanbei. While labeled as supplements, they were more like nutritional packages precisely tailored to different job energy consumption. There were standard energy types, high-energy types, high-protein recovery types, neurostimulating types for duty personnel, and even specially made high-metabolism versions for advanced new humans, ensuring crew members maintained optimal physiological states during long voyages. In addition to standard rations, there are several high-energy drinking water containers and special low-temperature storage boxes filled with processed flavor-preserved foods, such as fresh meat cuts, various dehydrated vegetables, and even small packs of Carthaginian-style sauces, offering a wide variety. These are prepared for the officers' mess and special rewards, aimed at regulating the crew's mental state and preventing ration fatigue. Bloodshark even noticed several boxes labeled with a certain brand, causing him to subconsciously lick his lips, only to feel a pang of regret over the high contribution point cost. Other boxes contained personal hygiene kits, including nanofiber towels with sterilizing and quick-drying functions, as well as biodegradable sanitary products. There were also medical and rehabilitation supplies far exceeding basic first aid, including portable diagnostic devices, various antibiotics, and radioprotective agents. Nanoscale wound healing gels, carbon matrices promoting bone and muscle regeneration, and core components for virtual reality relaxation pods imported from Carthage for psychological intervention. Remaining were several sealed data core boxes, storing the latest audiovisual materials, virtual reality games, ebooks, and physical training tutorials. This was key to maintaining crew morale and combating psychological issues arising from prolonged confinement. Just then, Lien's communication cut indirectly, not requiring Bloodshark's acknowledgement. Bloodshark, where are you? Aren't you checking the messages? The logistics team is looking for you everywhere. There's a batch of weapons and powered armor that needs your signature. Got it. On my way, Bloodshark replied, feeling a jolt, as they hurriedly boarded the ship on the bridge of the Styx-class vessel. The bustling noise of the external port starkly contrasted with the focused and orderly command center inside. The main viewport occupied the entire front wall, clearly displaying the busy scene of the port. 18 functional zones were arranged in a circular tiered layout, all seats filled. They had boarded the ship half an hour early, and the current helmsman was Gira, as Savina had gone to command the monitoring of the Swordfish-class interceptors. The jump engine and dark matter perpetual motion core were functioning normally. The navigation channel had been confirmed clear, and the star map was calibrated. The status of the micro and medium jump propulsion systems was normal, with a maximum cruising speed of 28,766 meters per second within 3 seconds. The operations officer was Denise, with multiple screens displaying the status of weapon systems, drones, Iron Horse hangar readiness, and external sensor data. Her fingers flew over the virtual keyboard, performing pre-combat system self-checks. Structure 100, Armor 100, Shields 100, Capacitor Core 100, Energy Storage 800 TJ, Reactor status normal, with a maximum output of 11,500 GWh per hour. Main weapons 1 to 8, Heavy Pulse Laser Cannons, status normal, Standard Crystals loaded. Close-in Defense Systems 1 to 4, Small Focused Pulse Beam Cannons, status normal, Standard Crystals loaded. Missile Launchers 1 to 4, Light Whip Missiles loaded. Stealth Operations Devices were ready. All drones and Iron Horses were stored. Next to Dini is Vera, who serves as both the radar officer and data analyst. The ultra-high-speed radar system is functioning normally. The ECM combat system is operational. The core combat scanning probe system of the Sisterhood is working well. The relic analyzer is in good condition. The data analyzer is functioning properly. Communications officer, the fleet's internal encrypted communication system is connected smoothly, with a delay of 0 milliseconds. The remote superluminal communication array is on standby, and the quantum encryption channel is available. Environmental control officer, the atmospheric composition, pressure, and temperature on board are stable. The artificial gravity gradient is maintained at 10 G, with a deviation of 0.05. The water recycling and synthesis systems, as well as the oxygen recycling system, are functioning normally. The medical bay reports that all equipment is ready, with a reserve of 100 units of nanomedical gel. At that moment, the main hatch of the bridge opened. A figure stepped onto the bridge, and the previously busy low murmurs and commands momentarily quieted. All members' gazes were involuntarily drawn to the newcomer, but professional discipline quickly redirected their attention back to their screens, though their backs instinctively straightened slightly. It was Lu Ling. He wore a long black coat styled as a captain's uniform, with a small standing collar and dark metal fasteners adding an air of stern authority. This outfit perfectly complemented his increasingly composed demeanor. His steps were steady, and the soles of his boots struck the alloy floor with a clear sound as he walked directly to the central command seat, raised a step above the ground. Although the operators along the way did not look up, they could feel an invisible pressure sweep past. Lu Ling did not pause for a moment and naturally took his seat in the highest command position. As he sat down, the command seat sensors activated, contour lights illuminated. The interface glowed faintly, and the main display screen adjusted its angle automatically. The entire fleet completed its final self-check, sent a departure request, and prepared to set off.